Chapter 449. As a matter of fact, the elders of the Alliance were unfamiliar with Douluo by Shuiyang, Golden Hoop, and Hong Yifeng. Many people even thought that they didn't exist. After all, they had never heard of Douluo before. It was strange that so many of them had shown up all of a sudden. However, at that moment, as the shouts were heard, people saw that Thanos in white had arrived at the plaza with 13 other powerful warriors. These elders were all real. Everyone's jaws dropped as their faces were filled with shock. Well, there are so many elders. Yu Yuanjin was surprised as well. Tang Xiao had a serious look on his face as he stared at the golden rings Douluo. He could tell that the elder was powerful. He didn't know what his soul power rank was, but he was sure that the elder was not weak, and he was able to stand behind Thanos Overlord, which also showed that his strength was very strong. "Welcome, elders. Please take your seats," Lin Feng said with a smile. There were 20 seats on the elders' table, which was more than enough for all of them. Just like that, under the leadership of Thanos Overlord, Golden Hoop, and the others glanced around and then sat in the elders' seats. Up to this point, the discussion in the square never stopped. After all, this was simply too shocking. So many titled Douluo that he had never heard of before had suddenly appeared. Even Ning Fengji was astonished. "Elder Douluo of the Alliance of Soul Masters, I vote for Tang San." At this moment, a green figure suddenly appeared in the middle of the square, and at the same time, he shouted. Lin Feng cupped his fist with a smile. "Elder Du, congratulations on reaching the 96th rank." "Congratulations." That's right, the last elder was Douluo. The reason why there had been no news of him was simple. He had been in seclusion to make a breakthrough. Lin Feng had thought that Douluo wouldn't succeed before the alliance was established. However, Lin Feng had underestimated him. Douluo had made the breakthrough and had even made it there. At this time, after hearing Lin Feng's words, Douluo smiled and inadvertently revealed a trace of his aura. He cupped his hands and said, "Deacon Lin Feng, you're too kind. It's all thanks to Mr. Destroy's teachings." With that, he cupped his hands in the direction of Thanos. At the same time, his green robe fluttered in the wind, making him look very handsome. Everyone in the square was shocked by this scene. Due to the lag in information, many people's impression of Douluo's strength was still at level 91. But now, it had only been a few years. How did he suddenly reach level 96? This was simply too terrifying. Even those who were well-informed only knew that Douluo's strength had increased 3 years ago, but they didn't know by how much. And now, according to Douluo, it was Thanos who taught him well? What kind of teaching method was this? For a moment, everyone was filled with curiosity. "Elder Du, please take a seat." Lin Feng smiled again. Hearing this, Douluo glanced at everyone, especially at the Golden Hoop and Douluo. Then he sat down next to Dusty Heart. At this time, Lin Feng shouted, "All the elders and chairmen of the alliance have voted. Among the 4 candidates, Tang San has 11 votes, Tang Xiao has 2 votes, Ning Fengji has 2 votes, and Yu Yuanjin has 2 votes. Tang San is in first place, and there are no objections. Therefore, I hereby announce that the first Alliance Master of the Soul Master Alliance will be Tang San, the sect leader of the Tang sect, for 5 years. After 5 years, the second election will be held. Now, let us use our warmest cheers to welcome the new Alliance Master." As Lin Feng finished speaking, Tang San did not hesitate at all. Following Lin Feng's instructions, he went directly to the seat representing the Alliance Master and sat down. At this moment, Tang San was very nervous. After all, this was the first time he had experienced this kind of situation. But he had done many exercises before, and with his own strength, he suppressed the nervousness in his heart and appeared to be relatively calm. On the square, there were already cheers to celebrate the birth of the new Alliance Master. As for the elders' seating area, everyone had smiles on their faces, expressing their celebration. Titled Battle Pet warriors like Douluo were not fools. Dusty Heart, Tang Xiao, and Yu Yuanjin were all smart people. Although they were not optimistic about Tang San's strength, it was obvious that he would become the Alliance Master under the current circumstances. Or perhaps, the Marvel family had pushed him to the position. Under such circumstances, they knew that objecting would be useless, so staying silent was the best choice. While everyone on the square was cheering, in the forest not far away, Bibi Dong's eyebrows were tightly knitted together. Originally, after Go's search, she had confirmed that there were no ambushes around. Then, Bibi Dong was ready to take action. But just a minute ago, she sensed the auras of Thanos and the Golden Hoop. They were extremely powerful. She was directly deterred and quickly sent Ghost to investigate. Then, Bibi Dong saw the scene on the square. 8 titled Douluo that she had never seen before had become the elders of the Soul Master Alliance. So many powerful people. How could it be possible? Could it be that they were all from the Marvel family? No, it was impossible. If the Marvel family had such strength, they would have attacked the Martial Spirit Palace. Therefore, Bibi Dong guessed that there was a high probability that these people were also from hidden families or powerful people. They were brought out by the Marvel family. In any case, there were now 8 additional titled Douluo in the plaza. Furthermore, they were all extremely powerful. If Bibi Dong were to bring his men forward, there was a high chance that they would be killed instead. But if she left, she was really unwilling. After organizing for so long and trying to block the news, this was another chance to catch them all. If she missed it, she didn't know how long she would have to wait. Because of this, Bibi Dong was now very annoyed. Your Highness, there are a total of 13 titled Douluo on the plaza right now, and that's without including Ning Fengji's support. Moreover, Thanos, Tang Xiao, and Yu Yuanjin are all extremely powerful existences among them. We can't fight them. Gue Mei and Yu Guan looked at each other before speaking in deep voices. They saw the struggle in Bibi Dong's eyes. This wasn't a good thing, so they were persuading her. Yes, we can't fight them. Bibi Dong pondered for a moment, then said unwillingly, "Get ready to retreat. Let's go back to the base first." Bibi Dong knew that they couldn't win by force, but she didn't want to make a wasted trip. So, she was ready to carry out the second plan. To be precise, the second plan wasn't certain, because it was just a temporary idea. The plan was simple. Ghost would continue to investigate the situation and then find a good opportunity to kill some of the elders in the Alliance. They might have a chance to win if they only had to deal with the 12 titled Douluo, but there were too many people in the square. They had to wait. Just as Bibi Dong was about to lead everyone away, what they didn't know was that in the sky above them, an eagle was watching everything. This eagle was, of course, one of Lin Feng's clones. When Thanos and the Golden Hoop, Douluo, came in, they sensed a special fluctuation of soul power that was specifically used to investigate them. This fluctuation was very weak, but Lin Feng specialized in soul power. No matter how weak the fluctuation was, he could still sense it. So, he immediately sent a clone to check it out. It was fine if he didn't check, but once he did, he found that a group of people had sneaked in a Shrek and were slowly making their way to the square. Their movements were very secretive, and their soul power fluctuations were concealed. If Bibi Dong hadn't been probing him, Lin Feng wouldn't have noticed them at all. But since he sensed it, it was only a matter of time before he found out. At first, when Lin Feng found this group of people, he thought that they were some small forces that had joined the Martial Spirit Hall and were secretly watching something. After all, they had joined the Martial Spirit Hall's Soul Master Alliance. Now that another Soul Master Alliance had been established, it was normal for them to come and check out the situation. But after a few more glances, Lin Feng was stunned. These people were actually from the Martial Spirit Hall. Although they were all wearing masks and other disguises, Lin Feng was too familiar with Bibi Dong's power, Gue Mei, and Yu Guan, so he quickly recognized them. Then, Lin Feng used his other clones to transform into animals and get closer to them. As they got closer, Lin Feng's heart trembled. So strong. Basically, they were all powerful titled soul masters like Douluo, and the weakest was at least rank 89. They were the main force of the Martial Spirit Hall. Was Thousand Dao Flow here? After sensing for a while, Lin Feng realized that they shouldn't be here. But Bibi Dong came in person, and besides Gue Mei and Yu Guan, there seemed to be 2 other rank 96 soul masters. This was a group of extremely powerful soul masters. If Lin Feng hadn't discovered them just now and was then ambushed, he might have been fine. But if the others were ambushed, it would have been difficult for him to save all of them. If Xiao Wu, Tang San, and the others were killed, Lin Feng would probably be very upset. After all, they were all people he was familiar with, and he didn't want this to happen. And if the ones who died weren't Tang San and the others, the situation would be better, but it would also be very bad. After all, many people died on the day the Soul Master Alliance was established, and this would be a serious blow to the alliance. It was precisely because of the serious consequences that Lin Feng was a little scared at this time. Fortunately, he discovered it in advance. After rejoicing, Lin Feng's heart was filled with anger. What a good martial spirit hall. I didn't even bring people to find trouble with you, but you actually came in advance. Since you're here now, then stay. Anyway, the first goal of the Soul Master Alliance was to unify the world of Soul Masters, and they would fight against the martial spirit hall sooner or later. Today was a good opportunity for Bibi Dong to wipe out the Soul Master Alliance. And, at the same time, for Lin Feng, it was also a good opportunity for them to take down the martial spirit hall. If all of these people were killed, Lin Feng's experience would not only increase greatly, but there would also be no hindrance in taking down the martial spirit hall in the future. It just so happened that the Soul Master Alliance was established, and it was also a good choice to use this battle to consolidate. Thinking of this in the square, Thanos suddenly looked in the direction of Bibi Dong and shouted, "How dare you spy on my Soul Master Alliance? Where do you think you're going?" As he spoke, Thanos' aura was released, and 1,000 trickery ruler instantly turned into a big stick in his hand. At the same time, soul rings appeared on his body. Of course, this was not Thanos' true strength. He was just pretending. With the same combination of soul rings as the 1,000 streams, this was his current identity. At the same time, this was also the first time Thanos showed all of his soul rings in front of outsiders. The moment the soul rings appeared, everyone in the square sucked in a breath of cold air. How terrifying! 9 soul rings, 8 black and 1 red. How is this possible? How could someone's first and second soul rings be at the 10,000-year level? Even Tang San, Ning Rongrong, and the others were shocked. They did not expect Thanos' soul rings to be like this. After all, when they were in the Stardow Great Forest, they saw Thanos show 5 soul rings, all of which were at the 10,000-year level. At that time, they thought that those were Thanos' last 5 soul rings, but they did not expect them to be the first few. But at the same time, they were as confused as everyone else. How could Mr. Destroy's first few soul rings be at the 10,000-year level? One had to know that Feng Ji's soul rings were already shocking, but now Thanos was even more powerful than him. Of course, there were some people in the crowd who knew more about it. For example, Ning Fengji, Tang Xiao, Yu Yuanjin, and the others. After the shock, they also thought of one thing, and that was the inheritance of a god. They knew that it was impossible to obtain a 10,000-year soul ring for the first soul ring. It could only be an acquired soul ring, and the only thing that could do this was divine power. Thanos must have obtained the inheritance of a god, so the age of his soul rings increased. Now that Thanos had 9 soul rings, 8 black and 1 red, his soul power fluctuations were also very strong. His strength was probably stronger than everyone present. Just now, he shouted that there was a thief spying on them. Was he trying to show everyone his strength? When he was thinking about this, Thanos' overlord suddenly jumped and directly jumped to a height of 100 meters. In the next second, a black soul ring shone on his body, and a pair of huge thunder wings about 30 meters in size condensed on his back. With a light flap, he flew hundreds of meters in an instant. Just when everyone was admiring, Lin Feng quickly sent a voice transmission to Tang San and told him the general situation. Soon, Tang San stood up and shouted, "All members of the Soul Master Alliance, listen to my order. 36 Hall Masters and all elders, follow me. Today is the first battle of the Soul Master Alliance. I hope everyone can exert all their strength." Lin Feng did not let Tang San directly say that it was the people of the Martial Spirit Hall, nor did he say that Bibi Dong was there. After all, The influence of the martial spirit hall was too great now, especially Pope Bibi Dong. With such an identity here, it was enough to make most people afraid. And now, Bibi Dong and the others were all wearing masks, so Lin Feng did not expose them. It was just right to let the members of the Soul Master Alliance have a good fight. Chapter 450. A war is about to break out? So soon? What's going on? Didn't Elder Thanos say, just now, there are thieves who want to deal with us? Is the Alliance Master bringing us to eliminate the thieves? But it's just a small thief. Aren't we making a mountain out of a molehill by mobilizing so many people? After Tang San's voice fell, everyone broke out into a flurry of discussion. Even the titled elders like Douluo were stunned. They didn't expect this at all. After all, it was just a thief spying on them. Wasn't it making a mountain out of a molehill by mobilizing everyone? However, Thanos' power just now, coupled with Douluo, Golden Hoop, and Douluo's response, they followed Tang San and ran towards Thanos. Their soul rings were revealed, and their auras soared. Under such circumstances, the Soul Masters who were called out didn't have time to think and quickly followed. At the same time, in the sky above the forest about 300 meters away, Thanos stood in the sky, holding a long rod in his hand. The thunder wings on his back flapped gently. His eyes were fixed on Bibi Dong, exuding a majestic aura. Bold thieves, secretly spying on the Alliance of Soul Masters Conference. Since you're here, don't leave. A loud shout made Bibi Dong and the rest of the people stare blankly. They were exposed? How could it be? Bibi Dong was sure that they didn't use their soul power all the way here. Under such circumstances, they wouldn't be discovered. But now, Thanos directly stopped them, which really surprised her. At the same time, everyone also saw the 9 soul rings on Thanos' body. 8 black and 1 red, which made everyone's eyes widen. How is this soul ring combination possible? Someone cried out. Bibi Dong's heart sank. She knew what this soul ring represented because she had experienced it before. It was the inheritance of a god. Thanos must have obtained a god's inheritance and completed several divine tests. Under the effect of his divine power, his soul rings had been upgraded. However, Bibi Dong knew that now wasn't the time for her to be shocked. At this moment, Thanos was releasing his aura without taking any action. He only had one purpose, and that was to stall for time. After all, Douluo's team was strong. Not even a real god would be able to wound that many titled battle pet warriors. Therefore, Thanos did not dare to fight them head-on. He only dared to stall for time. On the other side of the square, Bibi Dong sensed a group of guys rushing over. She knew that if they didn't leave now, it would be difficult for them to leave. With that thought in mind, Bibi Dong shouted, "Everyone, gather together and break out of the encirclement." Bibi Dong was a smart person. She knew that now that they were gathered together, they were a powerful force. Even if they were surrounded, it was not a dead end. After all, if they worked together, even if they were besieged, their enemies would have to sacrifice more than half of the titled battle pet warriors, including Douluo. Moreover, they were in Heaven Do City. They were masked and could use civilians as a threat. Under such circumstances, Thanos would not choose to attack for the sake of the Soul Master Alliance. As long as he was not a fool, he would let them go. If they chose to scatter and escape, it would be terrible. The Soul Master Alliance had many people. They might be strong enough to escape, but many of them would be killed in the end. Therefore, in an instant, Bibi Dong made the best decision. She stood at the front and led everyone to break out of the encirclement towards the east. Where do you think you're going? Thanos' long rod suddenly enlarged and swept towards them from 200 meters away. Indeed, as Bibi Dong thought, Lin Feng was strong now, but he was still no match for the combined attack of the Martial Soul Hall's high-end combat power. However, he didn't need to fight head-on. He could just harass them from afar. He just needed to stall until Tang San came over with everyone. Facing Thanos' big rod, Bibi Dong snorted coldly. Following that, her soul power fluctuated rapidly, and her soul rings appeared. Purple, 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 black, 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 red. 3 years ago, Bibi Dong's soul rings were still too yellow, too purple, 4 black and 1 red. However, after 3 years of baptism, she had passed a few divine tests, and the age of her soul rings had increased. Now, as her soul power burst forth, the projection of the Spider Emperor appeared behind her. Soon, the Spider Emperor spat out a black ball of light from its mouth, and it directly collided with Thanos' long rod. Boom! With a loud sound, an enormous soul power fluctuation spread out in all directions with this as the center. The trees nearby were torn to pieces by this huge force, and the trees further away were all tilted. As for the trees further away, they swayed as if they were blown by a strong wind. This collision did not affect Yuguan, Gue Mei, and the rest much, because Bibi Dong had told them to break out of the encirclement with their lives. When the two of them collided, this group of people had already run to the front. Therefore, they did not see it and only felt the soul power fluctuations. The words of Tang San and the rest, however, had clearly captured this scene with their own eyes. The collision between the 200-meter-long rod and Bibi Dong's huge spider projection shocked everyone. Was this really the power of a tidal Douluo? He was too strong. 3 years ago, in the Martial Spirit Hall, Tang Hao summoned a huge clear sky hammer. At that time, the 100-meter-long hammer was already shocking enough. But now, he directly summoned a 200-meter-long rod, and it did not seem to be Thanos' limit. This kind of strength was really shocking. Of course, although they were shocked, they did not stop moving. Instead, they rushed over there even faster. As for Tang San, he activated the soul skill on his blue-silver Emperor leg bone. He was extremely fast and did not fall behind anyone. At this moment, he shouted, "Mr. Destroy is delaying the enemy. Let's catch up quickly and stop them all. Let's make the Soul Master Alliance famous." In front of them, Bibi Dong looked serious. After repelling Thanos' attack, she led everyone out of the forest. Previously, Bibi Dong wanted to use the civilians to threaten the Soul Master Alliance, and then let them escape. But at that time, she only thought about it. She did not really plan to do it. However, after the collision with Thanos, she felt that she had to do it, because Thanos was too strong. After the rod hit, Bibi Dong was slightly injured, even though she was defending with all her might. Right now, she looked normal, but she had suppressed her injuries. She realized that Thanos was stronger than she thought. If she did not use some dirty tricks, they might all die in Heavendos City today. As for Thanos' Overlord's side, after seeing Bibi Dong break away and continue to escape, he didn't say much but continued to follow. He did not use all his strength in the previous strike. There's a reason for this. If he had used all his strength, Bibi Dong would not have stopped him alone. She would have let everyone attack him together. And in that case, he might have been injured. Although he could recover with his life force, there were so many tidal Douluo. There were bound to be some with special soul power. For example, Bibi Dong's Spider Emperor Martial Soul was highly toxic. If Thanos was attacked, it would take him several minutes to recover, even if he used his life force to recover. And in that long time, Bibi Dong and the others would have run away. Therefore, in order to deal with this group of people, Lin Feng could not be injured. He only dared to harass them from afar. Don't run. Thanos soon caught up with them and hit them with his rod again. Bibi Dong did not waste any time. With a serious face, she came out to block again. However, on the way, Thanos fainted. The rod suddenly shortened. After passing through her black light, it lengthened again and stabbed towards the group of people. Thanos' idea at this time was very simple. That was to keep this group of people. Whether or not he could keep all of them was another matter. Anyway, the more people that stayed, the better. On the way, killing a few could show the strength of the Soul Master Alliance and deter some people with evil intentions. As for the rest, he would imprison them and treat them as experienced babies. At the same time, they were also very important hostages. After all, if Lin Feng wanted to take down the Martial Spirit Palace, he could only attack by force. That would be more passive. But if there were hostages now, it would be a different story. They would turn from passive to active. It was only a matter of time before they took down the Martial Spirit Palace. Because of this, Lin Feng was very careful at this time. Thanos' strike was short and long. BB Dong did not expect this at all. Yu Guan, Gue Mei, and the others were instantly scattered by this strike. However, they were all top powerhouses on the Douluo continent. They were all very strong. Under this attack, no one was injured. Damn it, BB Dong frowned and hurriedly said, "Gather quickly and continue to break out." She realized that Tang San and the others were already close. Thanos' two obstructions, especially the second one, had a huge impact on them. Otherwise, according to her thinking, they could easily escape to the city center. Now, it was difficult, but soon, BB Dong seemed to have made a decision. He immediately transmitted to Yu Guan and Gue Mei, "Elder Gay, Elder Ju, use the martial soul fusion skill." The latter did not hesitate and immediately came to BB Dong's side and used the martial soul fusion skill behind him. BB Dong did not take the opportunity to leave. Instead, his eighth soul ring shone behind him. In the next second, another BB Dong who looked exactly like him appeared. The same perfect figure, the same mask, and even had the same strength and soul skills as BB Dong. That's right, this was BB Dong's eighth soul skill, Spider Emperor Clone. This soul skill was very strong. It was equivalent to Lin Feng's weakened avatar. It only had the first 7 soul skills, and there was a time limit. It couldn't be too far away. Even though there were many restrictions, its strength was still very strong. At this moment, her clone was left behind. With Yu Guan and Gue Mei's martial soul fusion skill, it was enough to stop everyone's advance. This was indeed the case. After BB Dong's clone appeared, he went straight to Slayer Overlord, desperately stopping him. The martial soul fusion skill of Gue Mei and Yu Guan seemed to have turned into a barrier, stopping everyone in place. It was enough to stop everyone for a few seconds. Taking advantage of this time, BB Dong led everyone from the martial soul hall and rushed into the city. "Where do you think you're going?" Slayer Overlord shouted, and the long stick in his hand shone brightly, and the stick smashed BB Dong's avatar. If it was BB Dong's main body, perhaps Thanos Tyrant would need some time to kill it, but this was just BB Dong's avatar, and it couldn't use the 9th and 8th soul skills. It was really weak. "Follow me quickly." After turning around and speaking to everyone, Thanos didn't hold back anymore. He teleported in front of BB Dong and the rest. On the other hand, Tang San and the rest were hiding some of their strength. After all, they were moving as a group. Everyone thought that others would do the work first, who would reveal their full strength. But at this moment, Thanos spoke. When he turned around, he looked at everyone with a weird gaze. It seemed like he was blaming them. Under such circumstances, no one dared to be negligent. Ning Fengji summoned the 7 Treasures Glazed Pagoda and used his soul skill to strengthen Dusty Heart. "Uncle Jian, go all out. Show everyone how powerful our 7 Treasures Glazed sect is." Just now, Dusty Heart had been rushing with Ning Fengji. Now, Ning Fengji stood on the ground and strengthened Dusty Heart. The latter didn't say anything. His aura suddenly increased. He broke through the obstacles on his sword and flew towards Thanos. At the side, Tang shouted and hold back anymore. The clear sky hammer appeared in his hand. He smashed a hole with it and followed. Yu Engine was next. He was possessed by the blue lightning tyrant dragon. He tore through the obstacles with his claws and followed. Then it was Douluo and the rest. They shook together and destroyed Gue Mei and Yu Guan's martial soul fusion skill. After that, their soul power surged. Although they moved late, they arrived behind BB Dong and the rest with Dusty Heart almost at the same time. When Thanos appeared, he didn't overestimate himself and block the group. He only came to the end and used spatial imprisonment to imprison 5 of them. The other 3 were also affected by his Blood Fiend soul skill and didn't dare to move. These 2 soul skills were from the Chinquan Blood Shadow Beast Skull. They were very powerful and controlled 8 people in an instant. Furthermore, Thanos chose the weaker 8 people. He chose them specifically to ensure the success rate of controlling them. Under such circumstances, BB Dong and the rest couldn't run. Otherwise, she would be heartbroken to give up 8 people at once. Therefore, BB Dong immediately brought people to surround the 8 people. While saving them, she also guarded against Thanos. She knew that it would be difficult to leave safely today. They had to pay a price. Of course, Bibi Dong would talk first. It would be best if they didn't have to pay a price. If there was no other way, she could only use her god's power. Perhaps it would greatly increase the difficulty of her god's test after using it. But this was also Bibi Dong's last resort. If she didn't use it this time, she might not even be able to survive. While thinking about this, Yu Guan and the rest had already rescued their teammates. At the same time, Dusty Heart and the rest also surrounded them and stared at them quietly. The two sides in this forest fell into a strange stalemate. Neither side spoke first. Instead, they sized each other up and thought of countermeasures. Not far away, Tang San, Ning Fengji, and the 36 Hall Masters were rushing over. The sound of their footsteps was like a countdown, stepping on the hearts of the people on both sides, one after another. The atmosphere in the hall became tense because of this. Chapter 451. Bibi Dong, your martial spirit hall is really bold. How dare you come to the headquarters of our Soul Master Alliance? Today, all of you will die. Slayer Lord blocked in front of Bibi Dong and the others and said indifferently. Everyone's expression changed when they heard this. What? Bibi Dong? The Pope of the Martial Spirit Hall? Could it be that these masked fellows were from the Martial Spirit Hall? Everyone was bewildered by this. After all, Bibi Dong was the only one who made a move. They didn't know what the others were like. Hence, everyone was doubtful of Thanos' words. As for Pope Bibi Dong, not many people knew what her martial soul was. This was because she rarely made a move. Even 20 years ago, as Qin Xuanji's disciple, Bibi Dong rarely made a move. Hence, even if Bibi Dong displayed her martial soul now, not many people could recognize it. They knew Ning Fengji, Yu Yuanjin, Tang Xiao, and the others. However, what Bibi Dong displayed earlier was only an illusion. It wasn't her real martial soul. Hence, not many people were sure. But now, Thanos Overlord directly revealed the identity of this group of people, which was really surprising. How arrogant! Bibi Dong snorted. At this moment, there was no need for the Martial Spirit Hall to hide their identities. After all, they were caught red-handed. There were so many powerful individuals. Besides the Soul Master Alliance and the Martial Spirit Hall, there was no other force on the continent that could take out so many powerful individuals. Hence, it was best to admit it openly. As Bibi Dong finished speaking, the masks on everyone's faces shattered. They looked around vigilantly. It was my mistake to be discovered by you today. However, if you want to keep all of us here, we'll have to see how much you can pay. At this moment, Bibi Dong recalled that she must have taken the initiative to check on Thanos. She didn't expect Thanos' strength to be so strong that he discovered them instead. Price? What price do we have to pay? Thanos laughed. You're just cornered beasts. You're surrounded in the forest. Where do you think you're going? Previously, when Thanos controlled a portion of the people, his goal was to separate the group of people. Then, they only needed to keep these people here. As for the others, they could just let them go. Otherwise, if there were too many people in a situation where they had to fight with their backs against the wall, many of them might die. After all, the combined attack of a group of people was too strong. Now, Thanos could only use his own life force at most, but he could not save people. Besides, even if Lin Feng was here and used his life force to heal everyone, he might not be able to save everyone. But now, Bibi Dong did not choose to leave with the remaining people. Instead, he stopped. This situation made Thanos feel a little uncomfortable, but on the surface, he still looked relaxed. A trapped beast will still fight. TSK. Yu Guan sneered and said, although our martial spirit palace is being besieged, we are not toothless tigers. Let's see who dares to come forward under our joint attack. Yu Guan's voice was loud enough for everyone to hear. They all knew that basically all the powerful warriors of the Martial Spirit Palace were there. There were so many titled battle pet warriors on Douluo's side. If the Martial Spirit Palace were to attack recklessly, they would only suffer great losses. At this moment, Tang San and Ning Fengji arrived. As for Lin Feng's original body, he had to maintain order in the plaza, so he could not leave. Thanos turned to Tang San and asked, Leader, how many of the Tang sect's hidden weapons do you have? Soul masters on the continent of Douluo usually did not carry weapons because their weapons were not as powerful as their martial souls. Therefore, they usually did not carry any weapons. Their attacks were rather simple. Under normal circumstances, this kind of simple attack would not affect anything. After all, martial souls were very convenient to use. But at the moment, when the martial spirit palace was trying to defend themselves, simple martial soul attacks would be of no use. After all, the martial spirit palace was very strong. If the martial spirit palace were to attack, they would be injured as well. On the other hand, if the martial spirit palace used the Tang sect's hidden weapons to attack from a distance, Bibi Dong and the others would not be able to defend themselves. Usually, hidden weapons would be thrown out of the hands and had nothing to do with martial souls. Even if the hidden weapons were to be broken, it would not be a big deal. Therefore, Tang San's hidden weapons were the solution to this problem. Mr. Destroy, I have over 100 hidden weapons, Tang San said excitedly. He had never imagined that Lord Mia, whom he had always respected, would one day call him the leader of the alliance. It was such a great feeling. Take them out and share them with everyone, Thanos said. As a matter of fact, Thanos' identity was the only restriction. His martial soul was just a long stick in everyone's eyes. Therefore, he could not use the 1,000-chance ruler to transform. Tang sect's hidden weapons? What are they? Yeah, have you heard of them? What kind of hidden weapons can solve the current situation? The Golden Hoop and the others looked at each other in confusion after hearing the words Tang sect's hidden weapons. As a reclusive family, they were not very clear about the situation on the continent. They only had a rough idea. These changes were made after the Marvel family came knocking on their door. Otherwise, they would have been in closed-door cultivation for decades. When they came to the Soul Master Alliance, they saw that there were 5 people in the committee representing the 5 major forces. They had heard of 4 of them, the 3 upper sects and the Marvel family that Thanos was in. But they knew nothing about the Tang sect. Now, they were full of curiosity. At the same time, the people from the Martial Spirit Palace were also puzzled and curious. Bibi Dong even asked Gue Mei, Elder Gue, what are Tang sect's hidden weapons? Have you heard of them? She knew what hidden weapons were. It was nothing more than some special attack techniques or special means. But these things were generally not useful. They might be useful for low-level soul masters, but for titled soul masters like Douluo, they were useless. But looking at Thanos' appearance, he seemed to have a card up his sleeve, so Bibi Dong was a little vigilant. Your Majesty, I have heard of some special hidden weapons. If used properly, they can threaten some soul kings. Gue Mei reported. The situation of the 7 Treasures Glazed sect had always been monitored by the Martial Spirit Palace. Gue Mei also had some understanding of the Tang sect's hidden weapons in their hands. He even tested their power. After asking around, they also knew that it was produced by the Tang sect. But those hidden weapons were too weak. Soul Emperors could easily resist them. In addition, the Tang sect didn't make any big moves in the past 3 years. So Gue Mei didn't take it to heart and didn't report anything. A threat to Soul Kings? Bibi Dong frowned and said, Are you sure there's no threat above Soul Kings? If what Gue Mei said was true, that the Tang sect's hidden weapons could only deal with Soul Kings, then it would definitely be useless against them. But looking at the expressions of Thanos and Tang San, it was obviously not the case. So, Bibi Dong was very suspicious of Gue Mei's information. I'm not sure, Gue Mei said. After experimenting with it back then, he felt that it wasn't very threatening. So, he didn't bother too much about it. Now, he really didn't dare to say anything. At this moment, Tang San also waved his hand and took out many hidden weapons from his soul tools. Tang San had never slacked off when it came to the creation of hidden weapons. Perhaps he didn't create many powerful hidden weapons, but as he became stronger, the hidden weapons he created became more and more powerful. If the cluster bombs he created 3 years ago were used by a titled Douluo, they could even severely injure a titled Douluo Soul Master as long as they hit their target. Now, the hidden weapons that Tang San had the most were the Zhuge repeating crossbows. Furthermore, they were the Tang sect's specially modified version. The arrowheads on them were specially made, and even came with powerful soul skills. When they were infused with the soul power of a titled Douluo soul master, they would become extremely powerful. Even if the people from the martial soul hall tried their best to resist, they might be able to resist for a short period of time. But when they were exhausted, they wouldn't be able to resist. Furthermore, as long as there were enough hidden weapons, the enemy would be injured if they weren't careful enough. This is the Juga repeating crossbow. There are 72 arrows in the middle. Every arrow is infused with a soul skill. It was created using the soul tool technology of the Soul Master Alliance. Infused with a soul skill? How is that possible? Most importantly, the Soul Master Alliance actually possesses such technology? It's too unbelievable. At this moment, everyone was very curious about the soul tool technology. Tang San continued, "It's very simple to use this crossbow. Infuse soul power into it and pull the trigger." As he spoke, he pulled the trigger and shot an arrow in BB Dong's direction. Everyone saw a fiery red arrow being shot out from the crossbow. It was very fast and went straight for BB Dong. The soul power undulations on it were very intense. BB Dong's expression didn't change at all. She could sense that this arrow wasn't threatening to her at all. She waved her hand, and her soul power turned into a shockwave that blocked the arrow. However, in the next second, the soul power on the arrow started to boil. After that, it exploded and turned into a fireball. This scene caused everyone's pupils to shrink. It's really a soul skill. Although it wasn't very strong and only seemed to be at the level of a soul sage, the user was Tang San. If it were titled Douluo, he would be able to use his own soul power to attack. Perhaps it wouldn't be as strong as his own attack, but it would still be very easy for it to reach the level of a titled Douluo. This was also because the materials used were inferior, so the input of soul power was limited. If it were better materials, it would probably be even more terrifying. Do you see this? It's that simple. As he spoke, Tang San took out a batch of Juga repeating crossbows and distributed them to everyone. During this time, Thanos, the Golden Hoop, and Fei Ying didn't move at all. They stared at the people from the Martial Soul Hall to prevent them from escaping. As for BB Dong, she looked more and more gloomy as she watched Tang San distribute the Juga repeating crossbows. Previously, she thought that as long as they gathered together, they would have the right to speak and negotiate. However, looking at the situation now, they might be forced into a corner by the Tang sect's hidden weapons. Remember, I'm only lending these Juga repeating crossbows to you. You have to return them after you use them. Tang San said, "Also, these arrows are very expensive. I'll let you use them for free this time. If you want to use them in the future, you have to use contribution points to exchange for them." Tang San didn't know about the contribution point system, and Lin Feng didn't tell him either. However, he was very smart and quickly figured out the reason behind it. In the future, the Tang sect profits could be exchanged within the alliance. Now that he gave the Juga repeating crossbows to everyone, it seemed that he would lose some arrows later. However, in reality, this was also a trial for everyone. It could make the Tang sect famous. As long as the hidden weapons were effective, the hidden weapons produced by the Tang sect in the future would be easily sold without any introduction. While Tang San was distributing the Juga repeating crossbows, BB Dong also knew that they couldn't wait any longer. They didn't know the actual effect of the Tang sect's hidden weapons, but whether they were strong or weak, Thanos obviously didn't intend to negotiate. He really wanted to keep them here. Therefore, they had to think of a way to break out of the encirclement. Otherwise, everything would be over if they were left here. BB Dong had been waiting for an opportunity to break out of the encirclement. At this moment, she noticed that 4 powerhouses had come to Tang San's side to collect the Juga repeating crossbows. Many people's attention was attracted by this scene. There were less than 10 powerhouses watching them. Seeing this, BB Dong suddenly shouted, "Everyone break out of the encirclement." With that said, she, Yuguan, Gui Mei, and the 2 masters rushed to the front and threw out all their soul skills. They weren't rushing toward Thanos. Instead, they were rushing toward Dusty Heart. Thanos was too strange. BB Dong wasn't confident that she could escape quickly. However, it was different for Dusty Heart. The sword Douluo's offensive prowess was very powerful, but his defensive prowess was very weak. In the face of their attacks, he could only retreat. Otherwise, he would definitely be killed. That was the truth. The martial spirit palace people were risking their lives. Even though Dusty Heart had 2 titled battle pet warriors by his side, they didn't dare to fight head-on. They only dared to dodge. That being said, the 3 of them didn't just stand there and do nothing. When they stepped back, they each launched a long-range attack, trying to buy some time. However, those attacks didn't cause any trouble. BB Dong and the others were like a sharp sword. They tore a hole in Dusty Heart's defense and broke out of the encirclement easily. However, the next second, Thanos appeared in front of them like a dogskin plaster. Then he swung his 200-meter-long giant stick to stop them. In the meantime, Thanos shouted, "Everyone, attack with all your might." Tang Xiao, Yu Yuanjin, and Dusty Heart summoned their martial spirit true bodies without any hesitation. Douluo waved his hand as well. A large amount of poisonous fog appeared in front of them, stopping them from moving forward. The golden rings Douluo didn't stay idle either. A golden ring flew out towards the people from the Martial Spirit Hall. The others also tried their best to stop the Martial Spirit Palace people. They all had Juga repeating crossbows, but in a moment of desperation, they still used their martial spirits to attack. Chapter 452. Faced with everyone's attacks, BB Dong and the rest couldn't just passively take a beating. Knowing that they couldn't break through quickly, they quickly changed directions to avoid Douluo's poisonous fog. At the same time, they summoned their martial souls and unleashed soul skills behind them. Although they were forced to retaliate, these people were the main soul masters of the Martial Soul Hall. They were all very strong. This was especially so for BB Dong. She transformed into her Spider Empress true body and spat out a huge web to block most of the attacks. Under such circumstances, although BB Dong and the rest were injured, they managed to block the first wave of attacks. However, under Thanos' leadership, the Soul Master Alliance didn't stop. They attacked again, and another wave of attacks came. Not far away, the Hall Master of the Soul Master Alliance was coming. They were all Soul Masters at the level of Soul Douluo. Although they were weaker than titled Douluo, there were 36 of them. If all of them joined the battle, they wouldn't be able to escape. Seeing this, BB Dong's expression turned serious. Very soon, she shouted, "Disperse the poisonous fog. Everyone retreat." As she finished speaking, BB Dong's soul ring shone brightly. In the next second, a dark pillar of light shot down from the sky and enveloped BB Dong. Under the impact of this power, everyone involuntarily closed their eyes. Their attacks were all dispersed by this power without causing the slightest ripple. Moreover, this power seemed to carry a special attribute. Everyone present felt a trace of inexplicable hostility rise in their hearts. At the same time, there was also some fear. Even Thanos was pushed back by this force. He couldn't attack at all. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Yu Guan, Gue Mei, and the rest didn't hesitate. They escaped in another direction. What soul skill is this? How can it be so strong? Douluo was astonished. It was important to know that their attack just now was unleashed by more than 10 titled Douluo. Although it wasn't a martial soul combination skill, it was so strong that even a rank 99 Douluo wouldn't dare to take it head-on. But now, BB Dong had easily annihilated them. Moreover, the dark beam of light had pushed everyone back. It was really shocking. "This is the power of God," Golden Hoop said in a low voice. "What? God? Pope BB Dong has become a god?" Everyone's jaws dropped. "No," the Golden Hoop said. "She should have obtained the inheritance of a deity. Now she is just borrowing the power of a deity." That's right, BB Dong was now borrowing the Rakshasa god's divine power. Although she had paid a high price, BB Dong felt that it was worth it. Otherwise, if she was really trapped here, her life might be in danger. He can actually borrow the power of God. How powerful! Everyone exclaimed as they looked at BB Dong, who was enveloped by the dark light. Even Thanos' expression changed slightly. Was this the power of God? It felt stronger than he had imagined. Although he had a million-year soul ring, the strength of his soul ring didn't belong to any element. It was just pure strength. Moreover, his thousand trickster rulers' special soul skill was external incarnation. After using it, the strength of his million-year soul ring would not be completely replicated. Instead, it would be divided into two parts, one for the main body and one for the incarnation. In other words, if he used the incarnation, his strength would be reduced a little. Although this slight decrease in strength didn't make much of a difference to normal soul masters, it was still fatal for the truly top-tier soul masters. After Bibi Dong borrowed the divine power, her strength had been greatly improved, especially that special soul power fluctuation. Thanos felt an evil and cold feeling from it. Even if the life force in his body flowed, he couldn't stop this feeling from invading. He knew that Bibi Dong was now stronger than him. He had to merge with her. Thinking of this, in the square, Lin Feng found an excuse and handed the task of maintaining order to Flanders and the others. As for himself, he quickly came to the surrounding forest, ready to teleport to Thanos' side and then merge. But before that, the dark light on Bibi Dong's body had disappeared. At this moment, her entire body was emitting an evil aura. It was incomparably powerful and resisted everyone, especially Bibi Dong's eyes, which were full of indifference. She glanced at everyone, causing the flow of everyone's soul power to stagnate a little. Thanos was also waiting with all his strength. His martial soul true body had already been activated and all kinds of enhancements were placed on his body. At the same time, he held his long rod horizontally in front of his chest, ready to fight at any time. Bibi Dong was an extremely powerful soul master. In the original work, she had even killed Tang San. And because she didn't have many combat scenes, it wasn't clear what soul skill she had. Furthermore, she had borrowed the power of a god and became extremely powerful. Under such circumstances, Thanos had no confidence in resisting. He needed to wait for his main body to merge. However, because of Bibi Dong's borrowing power and everyone's soul power boiling, the space here was very unstable. His main body couldn't teleport over at all. This wasn't good news, but Lin Feng's main body and incarnation weren't far away. At most, his main body could rush over in 3 seconds. But at this moment, Bibi Dong moved. The soul ring behind her shone, and countless spider webs sprayed towards everyone behind her, enveloping a large area. Everyone wanted to block it, but there was a special kind of energy attached to it. It was extremely powerful, and they couldn't pierce it at all. And by the time they reacted and wanted to dodge, everything was too slow. In a second, except for the golden hoop, Dusty Heart, Tang Xiao, and a few extremely powerful tidal Douluo, everyone else was imprisoned by the spider web. Furthermore, the spider web contained extremely potent poison. Everyone hurriedly used their soul power to resist, barely stopping the spread of the poison. This situation was very dangerous, especially for Tang San and Ning Fengji. They were slightly weaker, and their soul power fluctuations weren't as strong as Douluo's. If they didn't cut the spider web quickly, the poison would attack their hearts and their lives would be in danger. The spider web is poisonous. The golden hoop had seen a lot. After seeing the spider web, he immediately made a judgment. Hearing this, Dusty Heart and Tang Xiao didn't waste any time. They quickly went to Ning Fengji and Tang San to help them out. The golden hoop also ran to everyone's side and started to destroy the spiderweb. In fact, everyone was in a very dangerous situation at this moment. Bibi Dong was too strong, and this kind of soul skill was beyond everyone's expectations. If Bibi Dong continued to attack them, there might be casualties quickly. However, Bibi Dong didn't care much about them, because at this moment, Thanos attacked. Although his original body wasn't there, and his strength wasn't as strong as Bibi Dong's, Thanos had to make a move. Otherwise, Tang San and the others would be in danger. Thanos' long rod was supported by soul power, and flames appeared on it. He smashed it towards Bibi Dong. Eat my rod. At this moment, he had also activated his netherworld true body. His body turned into nothingness for safety. However, Bibi Dong directly revealed his huge martial soul true body. He opened his mouth and spat out a ball of dark light. It easily extinguished the flames on Thanos' long rod. Under this force, the effect of the Netherworld true body was greatly reduced. That special force was invading his body. If it weren't for the life force surging in his body, Thanos' soul power would probably stop circulating in a few seconds. This poison wasn't fatal, but if one soul power stopped circulating, not only would one be unable to use soul skills, they wouldn't even be able to summon their martial soul. It was obvious how strong this poison was. That wasn't all. After the black light enveloped Thanos, BB Dong's spider leg was like a sharp blade, stabbing straight at him. Lin Feng used his long rod to block the extremely sharp spider leg, but it was cut in half. What a guy! It was much stronger than Tang San's 8 spider spear. It could even cut through his 1,000 trickster ruler. Thanos didn't dare to take such a sharp spider leg head-on. The Wind Dragon left leg bones soul skill, wind invisibility, was activated. At the same time, the lightning wings flapped forward and rolling thunder rushed out. Boom! The thunder collided with the spider leg, and there was a muffled sound. A shockwave spread out. Thanos took advantage of the momentum and retreated a little. He condensed a long rod and continued to smash it down. Thanos had already used all his strength in the thunder explosion just now. However, BB Dong was too strong. The dark energy easily blocked his attack, and he was unharmed. Fortunately, Thanos had many types of soul skills and dodged quickly. Otherwise, his avatar would have been seriously injured even if he didn't die. The dark energy contained in it was too strong. It could restrain his life force. Thanos couldn't win against BB Dong at all without his main body fusing. He could only tangle with him now. Furthermore, he had to be the main attacker. Otherwise, if BB Dong attacked him, he would definitely lose. Dang! This rod was easily blocked by BB Dong, and one person and one spider quickly fought together. Thanos had been attacking, and BB Dong was not to be trifled with. Her spider legs flew quickly and easily blocked the attacks. In a second, the two had fought hundreds of times. At this moment, BB Dong suddenly found a good opportunity. Black light flashed on her body, and a large spider web was spat out by her. Due to the large area, Thanos had no chance to dodge at all and was directly imprisoned. This spider web not only contained poison, but also restrained space. Thanos' avatar had no way to escape. The main reason was that the divine power contained in it was so strong that it completely suppressed his soul power. He had no way to tear it. However, Thanos found that because he was wrapped in the spider web, everyone couldn't see his current situation clearly. At this moment, he no longer hid anything. The long rod in his hand instantly turned into a giant ball and lifted the spider web. Although the spider web contained a lot of corrosive power, the soul power in Thanos' body was frantically supporting it, maintaining the existence of this giant ball. Inside the giant ball, the space stabilized and Thanos divided into countless small clones. In this way, he could quickly teleport inside the giant ball and dodge all of BB Dong's attacks. Damn it, Thanos, I will kill you today, BB Dong said angrily. As soon as her voice fell, BB Dong directly transformed into her human form. A crescent-shaped machete appeared in her hand and slashed at Thanos. He couldn't dodge it. He was locked on. At this moment, Thanos' vigilance was greatly increased, and the feeling of death shrouded his head. No matter how he dodged, the machete would still turn and slash at him. A faint smile appeared on BB Dong's face. That machete was a treasure she obtained from the Rakshasa divine exam. That was the weapon used by the Rakshasa deity. It contained a characteristic that would hit its target. The reason why she didn't use it before was very simple. BB Dong wasn't strong enough. This machete was called the Rakshasa machete, and it contained powerful Rakshasa divine power. If BB Dong wasn't strong enough and used it, she would go crazy. Now that she had the support of divine power, she could use it. Thanos, you are dead today. Looking at Thanos' surprised eyes, BB Dong seemed to have seen the scene of his death. It could be said that the Marvel family led by Thanos was the biggest enemy of Martial Spirit Palace. If they could kill Thanos today, then their sneak attack plan would have succeeded by more than half. And just when BB Dong thought of this, Lin Feng's body turned into a breeze and instantly drilled into Thanos' body. At this point, the main body, the Avatar, and Lin Feng merged into one. His aura didn't increase much compared to before, but there was a qualitative improvement in his strength. Facing this machete, Lin Feng condensed a colorful flower in his hand. Then it suddenly grew bigger and wrapped around his body. And outside the immeasurable flower, the million-year golden soul ring also bloomed with dazzling golden light. Of course, none of this was shown. Lin Feng's 1000G ruler blocked the periphery, and no one found out the specific situation. Even BB Dong didn't see it clearly. She only knew that her machete hit Thanos. Clang! With a crisp sound, BB Dong found that her machete was bounced back. How is this possible? Her strongest attack was actually blocked. Thanos didn't die. With an incredulous attitude, BB Dong looked forward. She found that Thanos was standing in the air, unscathed. Not far away, a group of titled Douluo was about to be unsealed, and the soul also surrounded them. BB Dong knew that it was impossible to kill Thanos today. The time she borrowed the divine power was almost up, and the most important thing now was to protect the people of the Martial Spirit Hall. She suppressed the shock in her heart, threw a bunch of spider webs at everyone, and quickly chased after the Martial Spirit Hall. At this time, Thanos was standing in the air and didn't move immediately. It wasn't that he didn't want to move, but he couldn't. BB Dong's attack just now was too powerful. He used his strongest soul skill, Martial Spirit True Body, to block it. In addition, his soul power surged crazily to block it in the end. Even so, the special energy still invaded his body, causing him to be seriously injured. Now, he was standing in the same place, frantically using life energy to heal himself. Speaking of which, it was really dangerous just now. If BB Dong added another machete, he might have been in danger of dying. After all, that machete was too terrifying. Chapter 453. Lin Feng heaved a sigh of relief when he saw BB Dong walking away. It was too dangerous just now. He was dancing on the tip of a knife. In fact, he didn't have to go through such danger. He could just let his avatar die. However, there were too many people who saw this scene. He had to protect Thanos in order to keep his identity a secret. That was why such a dangerous situation happened. Of course, the main reason was that Lin Feng didn't expect this to happen. BB Dong was too strong. He could actually borrow God's power. That curved blade was definitely not simple. It could actually lock onto him. Lin Feng also realized that he had overestimated his own abilities. In other words, Lin Feng had underestimated the strength of a demigod. Among the titled Douluo that he had come into contact with, apart from Thousand Dao Flow, none of them had reached rank 99. Strictly speaking, he had always been guessing about God's power. After he obtained a million-year soul ring, he gained some understanding. However, all of that was his own transformation. There was no other reference point. That was why today's fight with BB Dong was Lin Feng's first confrontation with a demigod. Their strength surprised Lin Feng. At the same time, Lin Feng's lack of offensive power was also one of his shortcomings. His 7th soul ring was a million-year soul ring, and it boosted his strength greatly. After his martial soul true body was unleashed, his other soul skills were also enhanced. However, there was a limit to these enhancements. They didn't cause a qualitative change. That was why Lin Feng's offensive soul skills weren't as lethal as BB Dong's. In the previous battle, it seemed like the two of them had exchanged many blows. However, Lin Feng was just using tricks. As long as they fought for a long time, BB Dong would definitely lose if he figured out Lin Feng's fighting style. He might even be in danger. If Lin Feng wanted to increase his strength, it was very simple. He had to obtain another million-year soul ring. Other than that, it would be useless even if he put a soul ring on the 1000 trickery ruler. This was because once one reached the demigod rank, one's strength would undergo a qualitative change. If one couldn't reach that level, everything would be in vain. Only those with similar million-year soul rings would have the strength to fight. While thinking of this, the life force in Lin Feng's body surged wildly and healed most of his injuries. At the same time, the system notification sounded. Ding! After a thrilling battle, the host defeated the demigod titled Douluo BB Dong. Your combat experience has increased. Experience points plus 878624815 10 100 1000 10,000 a million 10 million 100 million. Lin Feng was a little surprised by the nearly 900 million experience points. In addition to the EXP gained from stopping the group of players earlier, Lin Feng had gained almost 7 billion EXP from this battle. He glanced at the system. Name: Lin Feng Martial Soul. 1000 Machine Ruler. Immeasurable Flower Soul Power. Level 83. Plus 1000 Tricks Ruler Soul Rings. None Special Soul Skill. Avatar Immeasurable Flower Soul Ring. Snow Lotus 100 million Year. Plus Soul Skill. Life Bloom Ghost Head Stalking Spider. 100 million Year. Plus Soul Skill. Shadow Bind Armored Giant Bear 100 million Year. Plus Soul Skill. Armored Devil Bear Transformation Raging Flame Devil Monkey 100 million Year. Plus Soul Skill. Raging Sea of Flames Nether Civet 100 million Year. Plus Soul Skill. Nether Body Lightning Falcon 100 million Year. Plus Soul Skill. Thunderbolt Strength Wind Dragon 100 million Year. Plus Soul Skill. Martial Soul True Body Chinkoan Blood Shadow Beast 100 million Year. Plus Soul Skill. Teleportation Soul Bone. Wind Dragon Left Leg Bone 100 million Year. Plus Soul Skill 1. Hadhar Soul Skill 2. Wind Concealment Chinkoan Blood Shadow Beast Skull 100 million Year. Plus Soul Skill 1. Spatial Imprisonment Soul Skill 2. Blood Fiend Experience. Points: 6674175 right now. His experience points were close to 7 billion, and he was only a third away from 10 billion. Looking at the 10 or so elders behind him, Lin Feng knew that the 3 billion experience points he needed were mainly from these people. Of course, there were also the Martial Soul Hall and the hidden experts who were deliberately avoiding him. These people were the best places for him to farm experience points in the future. During the battle just now, he took advantage of the strong soul power undulations to place a few tracking devices on Gui Mei and Yuguan's group. Now that he had recovered from his injuries, Lin Feng didn't care about the people who had broken free from the spiderweb behind him and directly chased after BB Dong. Although BB Dong's spiderweb poison was very strong, as long as he broke free from the web, he could rely on his own soul power to resist it, and it wouldn't be fatal. Because of this reason, Lin Feng felt that they could still hold on for a while. What he needed to do now was continue to cause trouble for the Martial Soul Hall. After all, BB Dong was able to sneak into the Shrek Academy with so many powerhouses, so they must have a base nearby. Lin Feng was now going to destroy that base, and at the same time, he had to force BB Dong and the others back, and it would be best if they could force them back to Martial Soul City. Otherwise, BB Dong's group was too strong of a deterrent. If he left Heaven-Do City, it would be very difficult for others to resist. Therefore, for the sake of the Alliance's safety, Lin Feng had to chase them away. As he rose into the air, Lin Feng's voice rang out in everyone's ears. Retreat to the plaza and defend your positions. Thanos was too strong, especially after clashing with BB Dong for so long. It was as if they were facing a god. That kind of impact was incomparably strong. No one had any objections to his words. After quickly rescuing people from the spider web, they all retreated to the plaza. At this time, Lin Feng was already in the air. He looked down at the entire city and easily caught BB Dong's trail. Of course, they would take the shortest route to escape. BB Dong's group quickly ran toward the north. Although there were many people, they were all in an orderly manner, shuttling under the eaves of some buildings. Although this would slow them down, it was safer. If they hid in the crowd, it would be difficult to find them. However, Lin Feng didn't need to use his eyes to find them. He easily sensed the fragments of the 1000 Trickster ruler and determined their movements. You can't escape from my grasp. With a faint smile, Lin Feng went directly to a tea house near the northern gate of the city and waited quietly. If he was alone, he didn't plan to fight BB Dong's group head-on. He came out with a plan. The first step was to find their base and then observe them. If they didn't leave, Lin Feng would continue to lead people to besiege them. Although Bibi Dong was incomparably powerful before, she was only borrowing power. Now that her power had dissipated, her aura instantly weakened. Under such circumstances, Lin Feng was completely confident that he could make them stay. If they left, Lin Feng would go to the base and wipe them out. Then, he would proceed to the second step, which was to catch up with Bibi Dong's group and force them to return to the martial spirit city. While Lin Feng was thinking about this, he sensed that Bibi Dong's group didn't stay in the city at all. They were running directly out of the city. Actually, under normal circumstances, Lin Feng could have used his clones to monitor them. However, those people were too strong. They were all title battle pet warriors. Lin Feng had already reached the limit of his ability to detect their location. If he were to monitor them, he would be discovered easily. At the moment, in the crowd, while running, Ghost asked, "Your Majesty, we are almost out of the city. Should we go back to the base, or—" "No, go back to the martial spirit city," Bibi Dong said in a low voice. Borrowing divine power came at a great cost. Not only was Bibi Dong in a weakened state, but the test had also become more difficult. She was very weak at the moment. If she ran into Thanos again, her life might be in danger. Therefore, what she needed to do now was to go back to the martial spirit city to recover. She couldn't do anything else. "Yes, sir," everyone answered. Ever since Bibi Dong showed her 100,000-year soul ring, the elders of the martial spirit palace realized how strong she was. Just now, Bibi Dong had demonstrated godlike strength. Of course, no one dared to have any objections. Just like that, the group rushed toward the north gate. At the same time, in Heaven-Do City, many forces were shocked because of the battle just now. In the palace, the Snowy Night Emperor was also very serious. For safety reasons, he immediately called for the 10,000-man Soul Master Legion to protect the palace. After all, the power of the battle just now was too terrifying. It was definitely a super battle. The Snowy Night Emperor didn't want to be affected. In fact, the battle just now was very loud. When Bibi Dong borrowed divine power, the Pillar of Light was seen by the entire city. As for the fluctuations of soul power, the two of them were very restrained and didn't let it out completely. In the end, nothing happened to the commoners around the academy. Because of the battle, everyone in the plaza was a little chaotic. Flanders was still too weak. He was only around rank 80. Many people present were stronger than him. Therefore, at this moment, he couldn't suppress everyone at all. It was very noisy. However, Tang San, Ning Fengji, and Dusty Heart soon returned. When the strong people arrived, the plaza quietened down. As the new alliance leader, Tang San didn't stop them. He recalled Lin Feng's teachings over the past few days. He quickly calmed everyone down with words. At the same time, he arranged everyone in the plaza in an orderly manner. At the same time, in the tea house next to the north gate, Lin Feng, who was waiting, put down the teacup in his hand. This was because he saw that Bibi Dong had already let a group of people out of the city. At this moment, Bibi Dong was still very vigilant. After all, Thanos was too strong. He was so strong that it was a little ridiculous. She borrowed the power of God and reached the peak of Douluo's world. Under such circumstances, she didn't kill Thanos. Instead, it became the current situation. This was simply impossible. After all, 3 years ago, Thanos wasn't so strong at all. Otherwise, the Marvel family's Doctor Strange wouldn't have self-destructed in the Martial Spirit Palace. With such a powerful Thanos, it was completely possible to save him. However, he didn't save her at that time. This could only mean that Thanos wasn't strong at that time. However, in just 3 years, he had made such a huge improvement. This made Bibi Dong very puzzled, because this matter was simply impossible. Even if Thanos had obtained the inheritance of God 3 years ago, he shouldn't have made such a huge improvement in just 3 years. One had to know that he didn't use any external force at all. However, he was able to block her full-strength attack and come out unscathed in the end. How strong was Thanos? Could the 1,000 streams kill him? For a moment, Bibi Dong was a loss. However, as the group left the north gate of Heaven-Do City, their originally tense hearts relax a little. The terrain outside the city was open and there were no obstacles. As long as they ran a little, they would be able to escape easily. Under such circumstances, their lives were at least guaranteed. Go right, go around, and return from the east side of the setting sun forest, Bibi Dong said in a deep voice. Because she was afraid of being tracked or blocked on the road, she chose a safer route. She went around and went to the setting sun forest. Yes, everyone nodded and had no objections. Just like this, the group of people from the martial spirit palace immediately turned and walked toward the east. At the same time, Lin Feng also sensed their route. He ran to the front and waited for them to come. This was a small path about 5 kilometers away from the north gate. There was a big tree here. Lin Feng was sitting on the trunk of this tree. He was holding a fruit in his hand and slowly eating it. After about 3 minutes, Bibi Dong and the group arrived at this small path. As they walked, Bibi Dong's expression suddenly changed. He shouted, "Stop!" Everyone immediately stopped in their tracks and looked at Bibi Dong in confusion. As for the latter, he had already turned his gaze to Lin Feng, who was looking at them indifferently from the big tree in front of him. Of course, Lin Feng was still using Thanos' appearance. His white robes and snow-white mask made Bibi Dong and the others feel a chill run down their spines. After all, they were retreating and had been very careful along the way. They didn't expose their tracks at all. But now, Thanos was on the path they had to take. This situation was too frightening. The group of people gathered together and spread their soul power in all directions as if they were trying to find Thanos' companions. Because in their opinion, although Thanos was strong, if they were to face all of them at the same time, it was simply not enough. After all, they didn't think that Thanos could take on 20 people by himself. It was normal for him to bring teammates. At this moment, everyone was ready to fight with their backs against the wall. However, after a few seconds, Lin Feng was still watching them. There was no movement around them. Their nervousness and fear just now was completely a battle of wits and courage with the air. "Thanos, what do you want?" Bibi Dong could see that the other party wasn't ready to attack them now. The effect of the poison from the spider web she threw out just now was probably difficult to remove in a short time. Now that Thanos was here, he either wanted to negotiate, or he was stalling for time and waiting for the group of helpers to come. Bibi Dong certainly wouldn't allow such a thing to happen. She was ready to test him. If Thanos kept stalling, she was ready to bring people to break through by force. Chapter 454. What should I do? Lin Feng chuckled and jumped down from the tree. The Martial Soul Hall is so bold to come to the Heaven Do Empire to ambush us. You're asking me what should I do? Lin Feng was still a little shocked by Bibi Dong's ambush. After all, they hid too well. Fortunately, Bibi Dong was greedy and wanted to catch them all in one fell swoop, so he waited and didn't make a move. Otherwise, there would be casualties in the plaza if he attacked before he brought people over. Therefore, he was still angry about this matter. Just now, he wanted to destroy the base of the Martial Soul Hall to vent his anger. But now, it seemed that Bibi Dong and the others were going to run away. Therefore, Lin Feng could only find trouble with Bibi Dong and the others. If it didn't pay a price today, he wouldn't let them go. Don't talk nonsense. Bibi Dong said directly, "You're the only one here. You can't stop us. Don't think about stalling for time. Get out of my way, or I'll kill you." She was telling the truth. Bibi Dong and the others had 20 titled soul masters as strong as Douluo. If Lin Feng was alone, he wouldn't be a match for them even if he was a real god. Kill me? How arrogant. I think you're very weak now. When the time comes, you'll be the first to die. Lin Feng laughed. I won't say anything more. Leave half of you here and be the captives of the Soul Master Alliance. Otherwise, all of you will die. Ha ha. Thanos, you're crazy. Yu Guan sneered. You're the one who's in danger. Instead of running, you're talking nonsense here. You're courting death. Lin Feng glanced at him and said, Bibi Dong, there are 20 of you. Leave 10 of you here and you can go. I don't care about the other 9 of you, but this Yu Guan, you must stay here. Lin Feng's tone was very certain and full of confidence. It was as if he could definitely make half of the people stay. As for Bibi Dong, she didn't realize that Lin Feng was spouting nonsense here, but she was very puzzled. How could Lin Feng stop them by himself? Bibi Dong asked directly. Who gave you the guts? How dare you say such words? Guts? Lin Feng smiled and said, I'm not that bold, but if it's just holding you guys back and waiting for reinforcements, I'm still very confident. And don't even think about running away. My Marvel family has set up an ambush. If you dare to run, I will kill you. As soon as he finished speaking, the dense forest on the surrounding hills trembled, and nearly 100 people appeared. They were all wearing Marvel family costumes, and each of them exuded the aura of a Seoul Douluo-level powerhouse. An ambush from the Marvel family? The faces of the people from the Martial Spirit Palace changed. The strength of the Marvel family was still very strong, and they were extremely fast. Although they were only Seoul Douluo-level Soul Masters, if there were nearly 100 of them, they were still very powerful. Bibi Dong's face sank when she saw this. She was now in a weakened state, and besides her, the strongest were the 2 level 96 Martial Spirit Palace consecrators. With this kind of strength, if they really attacked this group of people, only about 5 of them could escape. Thinking about it this way, it was better to keep half of them. But Bibi Dong knew that she couldn't do this, because it would be a major blow to the Martial Spirit Palace, and even affect Her Majesty as the Pope. So the only choice she had now was to rush out. And there was a very important point. Bibi Dong felt that there was something wrong with Seoul Douluo. When she investigated earlier, she didn't find any problems, and the soul power fluctuations were normal, so it was impossible for someone to hide nearby. So she was a little suspicious of the situation at this time. Everyone, get ready to charge, she shouted in a low voice. When Lin Feng saw this, he smiled and said, What's the hurry? I haven't finished speaking yet. Now, Lin Feng's true strength was, of course, unable to control these nearly 100 doppelgangers at the same time. His limit was only 30 people, and the other doppelgangers were just his camouflage. If the group of people from the Martial Spirit Palace really attacked, he wouldn't be able to stop them at all. But he had other ways, and said directly, Bibi Dong, I think you all know that our Marvel family is extremely fast. If you don't leave 10 people behind, I will go to the Martial Spirit City now and kill your bishop. And when I pass by the major cities along the way, I will also destroy your Martial Spirit Palace. The Soul Master Alliance will declare war on your Martial Spirit Palace. Since the Martial Spirit Palace used such a despicable method, like a sneak attack, Lin Feng didn't bother to talk about morality and just killed them directly. And speaking of which, the Marvel family's Doctor Strange was killed by the Martial Spirit Palace. He had to avenge him. Shameless, Bibi Dong shouted in a low voice. If Lin Feng said that he was going to the Martial Spirit City to kill people, Bibi Dong wasn't afraid at all, because Thousand Streams was still in the city. Although the guy didn't get along with her, he was still very strong. Even if everyone from the Marvel family went, there shouldn't be a problem. But Lin Feng said that he would destroy the Martial Spirit Palace in the cities along the way, which was unacceptable to Bibi Dong. I'm shameless? Lin Feng sneered. Don't worry, I won't kill all of them. At most, I will kill the Soul Masters above the Soul Sage level. The rest will be left behind. If you slaughter like this, aren't you afraid that the Soul Master Alliance's reputation will be ruined? Bibi Dong asked. And aren't you afraid that we will turn back to Heaven Do City at this time and slaughter in the city? I believe that in the end, this crime will be placed on your Marvel family's head. Just like Lin Feng, the two of them didn't really want to do these things. Instead, they were just using it as a means to threaten Lin Feng. I'm not stupid, I wear a mask when I kill. Lin Feng stared at Bibi Dong and said, As for you killing the citizens of Heaven Do City and framing it on us, do you think that's possible? All the Soul Masters on the continent know that the Marvel family only spars and doesn't kill. For 3 years, we haven't disturbed the citizens. Today, you say that we killed the citizens. Who do you think will believe you? Lin Feng didn't care about Bibi Dong's threat at all, because it didn't hurt him at all. After he finished speaking, the people from the Martial Spirit Palace didn't look too good. This was because they knew that with the reputation of the Marvel family in front of them, There was no way they could successfully frame them. As for framing the Martial Spirit Alliance, it was too difficult. The main reason was that the Martial Spirit Alliance's reputation was too low. Many people in Heavendo City might know about it, but most people on the continent had never heard of it at all. They didn't even know what this alliance was, so it was very difficult to succeed. After understanding this, Bibi Dong's mind spun quickly, and she suddenly shouted, "Everyone, break out!" When Lin Feng was speaking just now, she had been observing the people from the Marvel family. At first, she didn't notice anything, but as she continued to observe, Bibi Dong suddenly recalled what happened in Martial Spirit City 3 years ago. At that time, the Marvel family also had dozens of powerhouses on the level of Seoul Douluo who rushed out. But those people only looked intimidating. When they really fought, they weren't strong or even very weak. And now, there were nearly 100 people. She guessed that it should be the same. So she chose to rush in. As soon as she finished speaking, Bibi Dong led everyone and rushed directly towards Lin Feng. In this regard, Lin Feng wasn't surprised. His doppelganger immediately used all kinds of long-range soul skills to attack the people from the Martial Spirit Hall, while he himself didn't make a move. He just retreated and watched quietly. Bibi Dong was a little surprised by Lin Feng's retreat, but she didn't say anything. After dispersing the doppelganger's various attacks, the people from the Martial Spirit Hall quickly ran forward at full speed. And this scene was all seen by Lin Feng. The corners of his mouth under his mask curled up slightly. He already knew that people like Bibi Dong wouldn't compromise easily. He said to leave 10 people behind, but compared to Bibi Dong, it was simply humiliating. Directly breaking out was her most likely choice. And Lin Feng didn't care about this. He knew all the movements of the people from the Martial Spirit Hall. Even if they were running very fast and disappeared in an instant, Lin Feng could catch up with them soon. At this moment, the light that represented the people from the Martial Spirit Hall was rapidly moving east in his mind. After observing for a while, Lin Feng estimated their route. He put away his doppelganger and came to a place 5 kilometers away from them in an instant. At this moment, Lin Feng used the same trick again. His doppelganger was lying in ambush, while he chose a big tree and sat on it as usual. That's right, Lin Feng's plan was very simple. It was to wear them down. Anyway, he had all the time. This group of people couldn't escape at all. He just had to wear them down. Wear them down until they ran out of soul power. Wear them down until they were annoyed. In the end, even if Bibi Dong didn't want to, there was a high chance that she would agree to his conditions. After all, the distance between Heavendo City and Martial Spirit City was too far. Lin Feng could do this countless times. But Bibi Dong and the others didn't dare to stop at all. This was because they were very close to Heavendo City. If they stopped for too long, if Ning, Fengji, and Tang Xiao caught up, it would be over. Therefore, when the critical moment came, Bibi Dong would definitely make a choice. Even if she didn't leave anyone behind, she would choose to split up and escape. When that happened, Lin Feng would be happy. As long as this group of people split up, he could easily catch some of them. Just as Lin Feng was thinking about this, Bibi Dong and the others from the Martial Spirit Hall rushed in front of him. At this moment, all 20 of them stopped in their tracks. They looked at Lin Feng, who was on the big tree, with astonishment on their faces. How is this possible? Lin Feng had blocked them previously because he had been discovered. But this time, it didn't make sense at all. After they broke through Lin Feng's blockade, not only did they use their soul skills to speed up their escape, but they also changed the direction of their escape. Moreover, when they escaped, they deliberately hid their tracks and walked through the dense forest. Under such circumstances, they could lose them even if they were flying in the sky. But now, not only did Lin Feng not lose them, but he was also waiting for them on the path they had to pass. This was completely beyond the scope of everyone's understanding. Bibi Dong's face was also full of bewilderment. She was different from others. The first thing she did was to check her body to see if there was any special mark. She knew that some soul masters' soul skills were more special. They could mark the body and then track the enemy. However, Bibi Dong searched all over her body and didn't find anything special about her soul power. Then she used her soul power to sense the others, but she didn't find anything unusual. After discovering the situation, the shock in Bibi Dong's heart became even stronger, because she knew that the reason why Lin Feng could block them in advance was definitely because he had some special method to locate them. And now she didn't find it, which meant that Bibi Dong couldn't get rid of Lin Feng's tracking. Bibi Dong, we meet again. Are you tired from running just now? Lin Feng jumped down from the tree and said in a relaxed tone. It had to be said that Bibi Dong's strength was very strong. Even in a weak state, her soul power fluctuation was still very strong. She had been running for such a long time, but her clothes weren't messy at all. Standing there, she gave people a feeling of elegance and nobility. Bibi Dong tried to suppress her shock and asked, "Where are your friends? Why aren't they here?" Bibi Dong was referring to the powerful warriors at the level of Soul Douluo. They hadn't shown up yet. That was why Bibi Dong asked. Lin Feng didn't show his clones. He smiled and said, "They're still on their way. They'll be here soon." "What about you? Have you thought about my proposal? You can leave with 10 people. It's easy. Otherwise, you won't be able to go back. I've already asked someone to call for backup." The fact that Lin Feng's clones hadn't shown up was just a small detail. Just now, the group of tidal Douluo were running at an extremely fast speed. It was very normal and logical for him, as a Slayer Lord, to be ahead of them. But it would be a problem if the clones at the level of Soul Douluo had arrived as well. Therefore, in order to take care of the details, Lin Feng didn't tell his clones to come out right away. Instead, he waited patiently. As for calling for backup, it was just a threat just like before. Lin Feng might really call for backup, but not now. He would find some time to go back and detoxify everyone and then bring more people back. Of course, if he could achieve his goal in advance, he wouldn't need to bring more people with him. Call for backup? Don't even think about getting reinforcements today. At this moment, Bibi Dong suddenly shouted, "Go!" Whether Lin Feng was telling the truth or not, he was alone at the moment. Bibi Dong knew that the best way to break the stalemate was to kill Lin Feng. Therefore, she led the others to attack Lin Feng at once. However, Lin Feng had been prepared. He unfolded his thunder wings and flew into the sky. His speed was extremely fast. Although Bibi Dong and Gay may reacted fast enough, they still couldn't catch Lin Feng. Chapter 455. Everyone, split up. Seeing that he couldn't catch Lin Feng, Bibi Dong shouted instantly. The main reason why they didn't split up before was that they were afraid of being besieged by Dusty Heart and Tang Xiao. There was also Douluo from the Marvel family blocking them from behind, so they were afraid that they would be defeated one by one. But now, there was no one besieging them, only Lin Feng who was sent flying. In addition, Bibi Dong suspected that someone had been marked by Lin Feng, so splitting up at this time was the best choice. High up in the sky, Lin Feng, who saw this scene, did not stop them at all. He was happy to do so. As long as this group of people split up, he would have a chance to catch them. Of course, he couldn't pretend too much. Seeing this group of people split up, he immediately chose to stop them. The people from the Martial Spirit Palace were not stupid. Under Bibi Dong's command, they divided into 5 teams, each team of 4 people, and broke through towards the east. Moreover, the strength of each team was relatively equal. The strong and the weak cooperated with each other and used a combination skill. Lin Feng attacked one of the teams at this time. He smashed down with his staff and was blocked. Besides, they had just split up and were not too far away from each other. After Lin Feng's attack, the other teams wanted to come over and attack him. Seeing this, Lin Feng did not stop at all and left in an instant. He didn't need to keep fighting with them. He just needed to be entangled. When these people split up, they would be caught. The main thing was that Lin Feng's injuries had not fully recovered yet. At the same time, he was afraid that Bibi Dong could borrow divine power again, so he didn't dare to attack. After all, he only had one life. Even if the probability of Bibi Dong borrowing divine power again was very low, he didn't dare to gamble. In this way, Lin Feng had been hanging behind this group of people, harassing them from time to time and consuming their soul power. However, a few minutes later, Lin Feng's brows furrowed tightly. Originally, he thought that this group of people would be completely separated and keep a distance. In the end, Lin Feng realized that he had thought too much of this group of people. Lin Feng didn't call for anyone, so even though the group of people had separated, they still kept a certain distance from each other and kept watch over each other. In this way, Lin Feng was unable to take them down other than constantly draining their soul force. At this point, they were already around 20 kilometers away from Heavendo City. If they continued to chase for a while longer, they would be out of Lin Feng's detection range, so they couldn't afford to wait any longer. As he thought about it, Lin Feng's thoughts moved. In the forest of the Shrek Academy, a hidden doppelganger instantly transformed into Lin Feng's appearance. Then he came to the square. "Fengge, you're back." Ning Rong Rong and the others immediately surrounded him with concern. When Tang Xin saw this, he hurried over and asked, "Fengge, how is Mr. Destroy? Why didn't he come back with you?" At this moment, the poison still existed in his body, and it was a huge burden on him. However, Tang San knew that this wasn't important. What was important was Thanos' condition. Dusty Heart, Tang Xiao, and the others also gathered around to listen to the situation. After all, Thanos was too important to the Soul Master Alliance. He was equivalent to a hub that linked everyone together. If something happened to Thanos, the Soul Master Alliance might disband today. Seeing everyone's anxious eyes, Lin Feng didn't waste time and said, "Mr. Destroy is fighting with the Martial Soul Hall. Elders, please come with me to help." As his voice fell, the immeasurable flower flew out from Lin Feng's hand. His first soul skill, Life Bloom, was activated. In an instant, life energy spread across the square. The elders who were poisoned by BB Dong's spiderweb were quickly recovering. 5 seconds later, Lin Feng retracted his soul skill. Tang San, Dusty Heart, and the others' bodies had been cleansed of the poison. In fact, the effect of Lin Feng's soul skill would be greatly reduced because it was just a small clone. However, they had used their soul power to suppress most of the poison in their bodies. Therefore, the soul skill of the clone was able to expel the poison in their bodies. This is amazing! Everyone exclaimed at the power of Lin Feng's soul skill. However, they also knew that the matter was urgent. Without wasting any time, they quickly set off with Lin Feng and rushed towards Thanos. Of course, Lin Feng didn't need everyone to come. On one hand, it wasn't necessary. On the other hand, the safety of the square had to be guaranteed. Therefore, in the end, Lin Feng only brought the strongest title battle pet warriors, Douluo. The weaker ones were left behind. 5 minutes later, Thanos met up with the titled battle pet warriors who had come to help Douluo in a small mountain 50 kilometers away from Heavendo City. "Elders, since I have brought you to Mr. Destroy's place, I will take my leave." With that said, Lin Feng's clone left quickly. Thanos and the others nodded to each other as a form of greeting. Then, Thanos said in a hurry, "There are 20 people in the Martial Spirit Hall. They are now divided into 5 teams of 4 people each. What we need to do now is to intercept those 5 teams. Of course, not all of them. We are not strong enough to stop them all. But I have been harassing those 20 people. They don't have much soul power left. Let's try to stop 4 of them. As for BB Dong's team, let's give up." The 5 teams were led by BB Dong, Ghost Douluo, Chrysanthemum Douluo, and 2 other masters. Strictly speaking, BB Dong's team had the highest chance of stopping Huiyu Hao's team, because BB Dong had 2 Soul Douluo and 1 Title Douluo with him. But Lin Feng didn't ask anyone to stop her. The main reason was that he was afraid that she could unleash some special power, which could cause casualties. To prevent that from happening, he didn't think about stopping BB Dong. As for the other 4 teams, Lin Feng was responsible for intercepting Yu Guan's team. The remaining 3 teams were led by Xiaotian Douluo, Kindle Yuo, and Golden Hoop Douluo. Lin Feng's request was simple. For teams, a total of 16 people. The conservative plan was to stop 10 people. The best-case scenario was to stop all of them. After he expressed his intention, the others didn't waste any time and followed him immediately. Before Lin Feng's avatar left, he had even helped everyone recover their soul power. Hence, they were all at full strength right now. On the other side, the 20 people from the Martial Spirit Hall had used up a lot of their soul power. They were all frightened. Dusty Heart, Tang Xiao, and the others were shocked. Thanos was only one person. How did he manage to stall the 20 people from the martial spirit hall for so long? In the end, not only did he not die, he didn't even suffer a single injury. This kind of strength was ridiculous. Of course, the most important task now was to stop the people from the martial spirit hall. How dare they sneak attack the Soul Master Alliance? Today, they must teach the people from the martial spirit hall a lesson. At this moment, Bibi Dong also sensed that many strong people were approaching. Her face was very serious. At this moment, she shouted, "All teams continue to scatter," and then, however, Bibi Dong was a little slow to realize. As she spoke, Lin Feng had already rushed down with a group of people. "Everyone, find your target and attack." Originally, when Lin Feng rushed down alone, you would always be beaten back by the others. However, he wasn't alone this time. A group of people divided up the work and found their targets. Instantly, their combined strength was broken. For a time, almost everyone found their respective opponents and started fighting. Lin Feng's words were also aimed at Yu Guan and the others. Ninth soul skill. Broken chrysanthemum. Wounds everywhere. Broken intestines. Facing Lin Feng's attack, Yu Guan didn't dare to be careless. Without anyone's help, he directly used his ninth soul skill. The teammates behind him also unleashed their powerful soul skills to stop Lin Feng at the same time. A huge chrysanthemum bloomed, and the sky was filled with flowers, showing a strong soul power fluctuation. Lin Feng smiled disdainfully. He directly used his nether body and turned into a shadow to dodge the attack. At the same time, he also hit Yu Guan's big chrysanthemum with his staff. If it was a ghost, Lin Feng's nether body might be restrained. However, Yu Guan's attack was useless against Lin Feng. Boom! The long staff hit Yu Guan's chrysanthemum, and there was a loud boom. In the next second, the chrysanthemum was broken. Lin Feng's strength was reduced slightly, and he continued to hit Yu Guan. However, at this moment, the teammates behind Yu Guan also attacked. Two huge waves of soul power instantly collided. Bang! There was a muffled sound. In the end, Lin Feng's staff was stronger, and the combined attack was destroyed. However, his staff didn't have much strength left. When it hit the others, it only made them vomit blood and fly back. Old chrysanthemum, weren't you very happy just now? Why aren't you saying anything now? Lin Feng cursed as he stepped on Yu Guan's body. At the same time, he waved his left hand and used Umbra Bind to bind the others. His second soul skill was now at 100,000 years. Although it was nothing against a demigod, it was still very powerful. However, to an ordinary titled Douluo, the poison was terrifying. In less than 10 seconds, the poison had knocked them out. At this moment, Lin Feng had already stabbed his staff into Yu Guan's face. "Old man, weren't you very arrogant just now? Why aren't you saying anything now?" Originally, Lin Feng thought that Yu Guan would be stubborn. However, he didn't say anything. He just stared at Lin Feng with hatred. How boring. Seeing this, Lin Feng couldn't be bothered to say anything more. With a flick of his wrist, the staff hit Yu Guan's head from the side. With a bang, he fainted. These were all experienced babies. It would be a waste to kill them. It was better to lock them up. After using Umbra Bind to bind Yu Guan, Lin Feng didn't stay. He quickly went to help his teammates. Before that, Bibi Dong had already left with the others. She knew very well that if she went back to save them, they would all be killed. Therefore, it was better to run now. More importantly, when Bibi Dong was running, she searched carefully and removed the trackers that Lin Feng had placed on everyone. Therefore, Lin Feng had been using his spiritual power and tracking in the air. Under such circumstances, he didn't lose them. But now that Bibi Dong ran away directly, it would be difficult for him to catch up. Of course, Lin Feng didn't plan a chase. At this time, the most important thing was to keep the others here. Thinking about it, he immediately came to Tang Zhao's side and helped to tie up the 4 people. Lin Feng said before that if he couldn't kill them, he wouldn't kill them. If there was no other way, he would kill them. And because Lin Feng's movements were very fast, in the end, no martial spirit palace soul master was killed. But because of the delay in the middle, 3 people ran away. It was Gui Mei and the other two consecrators. They were stronger and had fast reactions, so they ran away. In this regard, Lin Feng didn't say much. If they ran away, then they ran away. At this time, he caught 13 people, which had exceeded his expectations of 10 people. In fact, if Lin Feng continued to chase now, there was a high probability that he could catch 1 or 2 people back. But he was a little tired now. After the big battle, his spiritual power had been depleted when he was chasing after them. Now that one thing was done, he heaved a sigh of relief and didn't plan to chase after them. Just like that, a group of people caught the 13 powerhouses of the martial spirit palace and gathered together. Awesome! How satisfying! After today's big battle, we were able to catch so many people. Golden Hoop, Douluo laughed. He had been in seclusion for hundreds of years. Now that he had experienced a big battle as soon as he came out, he was very happy. The others also laughed and said, "Yes, with such a big victory today, the reputation of our Soul Master Alliance will spread quickly." Tang Xiao also said, "This battle is mainly due to Elder Thanos' credit. If he didn't deplete more than half of the soul power of the Martial Spirit Palace people, we wouldn't have won so easily. He's really amazing." Tang Xiao's words were very reasonable. During the battle just now, everyone could easily see that the Martial Spirit Palace people's resistance wasn't strong. The reason for this was that they had expended too much of their soul force. At this moment, everyone looked at Lin Feng with admiration. The latter smiled and waved his hand. "This is nothing. Elders, as long as you cultivate well, you can become as strong as me in the future." "Okay." Lin Feng waved his hand and said, "Today, the Martial Spirit Alliance captured 13 people from the Martial Spirit Palace. 12 of them are titled Douluo, and 1 is Soul Douluo. Victory! Victory! Victory!" Even though all of them were titled Douluo, they were still very excited after witnessing such a glorious victory. As they shouted, they rushed back to Heaven-Do City with the captives. At the same time, on the other side, Bibi Dong and the others met up with Gui Mei and rushed back to Martial Spirit City. Bibi Dong wasn't sure if Lin Feng would catch up with him again after removing those marks. So the safest way was to go back to Martial Spirit City without stopping for a moment. Along the way, no one said a word. It was very quiet. This was because they knew that the remaining 13 people were most likely dead. Chapter 456. Not to mention Bibi Dong's group, who were traveling silently with different thoughts. At this moment, in Heaven-Do City, in the central square of the Shrek Academy, everyone was cheering. Today was the first day of the establishment of the Soul Master Alliance. However, Bibi Dong, the Pope of the Martial Soul Hall, personally led people to ambush them. However, not only did the Martial Soul Alliance not suffer any casualties, but they also captured 13 people, including 12 titled Douluo Soul Masters. This kind of impressive battle record made everyone cheer endlessly. Originally, many people were still hesitant and doubtful about the Soul Master Alliance. They were afraid that the Martial Soul Hall would suppress them and disband like the time when Ning Fengji established it. But now, looking at the 13 captives of the Martial Soul Hall in front of them, everyone calmed down. This was a group of elders of the Martial Soul Hall. The Martial Soul Hall, that was invincible in their eyes, was completely defeated by the Soul Master Alliance today. For a moment, everyone felt a special sense of pride in their hearts. "We are from the Martial Soul Alliance. We defeated the Martial Soul Hall. We are really strong." Just as everyone was thinking about this, Lin Feng spoke. "Today, the Martial Soul Hall attacked us. Our Soul Master Alliance captured 13 of them and won a big victory." Hearing this, the cheers in the square immediately boiled. However, Lin Feng changed the topic and said, "But this is nothing. Although the Martial Soul Hall is one of our goals, this is only the first step. Our Soul Master Alliance's main goal is to promote the development of the Douluo continent. Not only the world of Soul Masters, but also all the ordinary people. So we can't be complacent. This is only the beginning. We have to be humble at all times." To be honest, many people in the square didn't understand Lin Feng's words. They had won a big victory, but he didn't want them to celebrate. He even said that they had to be humble. This kind of thinking was simply ridiculous. However, Lin Feng's face was big. Although he wasn't the chairman, nor was he an elder, nor was he the alliance leader, everyone saw what happened. However, everyone had seen what had happened before. Lin Feng's shout had made everyone leave. Furthermore, he and Thanos were very close. This Lin Feng would definitely become an important figure in the Soul Master Alliance in the future. Since he had said so, everyone would follow his instructions. Mr. Destroy, please take the 13 captives away. Lin Feng didn't want to say more about the Martial Spirit Palace. After all, in his eyes, besides being hostages, these 13 people were mainly his experience points, so he didn't want others to say anything. Okay. Thanos nodded and clenched his fist in the air. Thanos lifted the 13 people in his hands out of thin air. Then, with a leap, he brought the group of people to the hall behind him. Seeing this scene, the eyes of everyone in the square were filled with shock. Everyone knew that Thanos was extremely strong. They had all felt the commotion during the battle with BB Dong. Such powerful soul power undulations were simply terrifying. However, due to the distance, no one could truly feel how powerful Thanos was. But now, he had lifted them out of thin air without using his martial soul, and they couldn't feel any soul power undulations. This was beyond everyone's understanding. Even a titled soul master like Douluo couldn't do this. It wasn't just the soul cultivators in the plaza who were surprised. Even the elders of the Alliance were surprised by this. They knew that Thanos was using his soul power to do this, but that was the problem. They couldn't sense any soul power undulations at all. Even a rank 98 golden ring Douluo wouldn't be able to achieve such a level of control over soul power at all. Lin Feng saw everyone's shock, but he didn't care much. At this moment, he was controlling Thanos' avatar to find a suitable room in the hall. After all, Lin Feng still had to take care of this group of experience points. After bringing them into the hall, he quickly found a small reception room. Then, the Thousand Ruler flew out and transformed this place into a prison. Bang! With a casual toss, the 13 people flew accurately into 13 different cells. Then, Lin Feng spread the Thousand Ruler over the 13 people, and soul power surged. After about 3 minutes, Lin Feng withdrew the Thousand Ruler. Just now, he had sealed the 13 people's bodies, locking their soul power and martial souls. It was as if they were in a city of massacre, and they couldn't use their martial souls. Under such circumstances, Lin Feng wasn't afraid that they would escape. He could just send a few soul sages to keep them in check. Furthermore, the seals were very precise. Apart from Lin Feng, no one else could remove them. Lin Feng had researched this recently after he became stronger. In the past, he couldn't do this because of his strength. After sealing them, Thanos instantly came to the side of the square. He sent a voice transmission to Douluo, Hong Yifeng, and Bai Shuiyang. Elder Yifeng, Elder Shuiyang, please come to the hall for a chat. Hearing the voice transmission, the two of them were stunned. However, they didn't delay and quickly rushed to the hall. Seeing this, many people in the square turned to look. After all, the two elders had suddenly left. Lin Feng smiled and said, Mr. Destroy is looking for them. Don't worry about it. Let's continue the meeting. After Thanos left with his people, under the organization of Lin Feng, everyone continued the unfinished meeting. After the explanation, everyone continued the meeting and talked about the goals and plans of the Soul Master Alliance. These plans were very detailed and included many aspects. It could be said that this was the first 5-year plan of the Soul Master Alliance. Just as everyone continued the meeting, in the main hall, Thanos' overlord also met with the two elders. Elder Yifeng, I have a mission for you. Please tell me. Hong Yifeng said seriously. Although he was a super powerhouse at level 98, he was still very respectful in front of Thanos' overlord. I locked the 13 captives in a room on the side and sealed their soul power. As he spoke, Thanos pointed to the room and said, The mission is very simple. You just have to watch them and don't let them escape. Because of the seal on their soul power, they are very weak. Even a soul sage can watch them. You can ask your people to watch over them. Oh yes, The time limit for this mission is 3 months. Completing it will give you 100 contribution points. Are you willing to accept it? Yes. Hong Yifeng nodded. He didn't know much about contribution points. However, he knew that this was the first mission given to him by the Soul Master Alliance. It wasn't difficult, so he had to accept it. Later, you can go and register with Sect Master Ning. After nodding his head, Slayer Lord looked at Bai Shuang. Elder Xiang, your martial soul is an eagle, and your speed is extremely fast. I will also give you a mission, and that is to investigate Bibi Dong's whereabouts. Bai Shuang's martial soul was an eagle. Although he didn't know what kind of eagle it was very fast. It was even faster than Hong Yifeng. Therefore, Lin Feng gave him the more important mission. The reward for this mission is also 100 contribution points. It is estimated that it will take you a week. You don't have to look everywhere. Just go to Martial Spirit City. On the way, you can check out the situation in the major cities. It will be best if you can find Bibi Dong's whereabouts. If you can't, it doesn't matter. You just have to wait in Martial Spirit City. Bibi Dong will definitely return to the city soon. As long as Bibi Dong and the others return to Martial Spirit City, you can come back. Of course, if they haven't returned in a week, you have to come back and inform me. So, do you accept this mission? I accept. Bai Shuang nodded without hesitation. Very good. Thano smiled and said, Elder Xiang, I have to remind you that this mission has a certain degree of danger, especially in Martial Spirit City. You must be careful and not expose yourself. If you encounter danger, protecting your own life is the most important thing. Yes, I will be careful. Bai Shuang was more than 200 years old. He was very mature and didn't need too many reminders. Since that's the case, Elder Shuang, you can set off now. Thano smiled. Yes. Without saying anything else, Bai Shuang transformed into a giant brown eagle and flew in the direction of Martial Spirit City. On the spot, Thano smiled and extended his hand. Elder Yifeng, this way please. I will bring you to see the captives. Thank you. Hong Yifeng hurriedly cupped his hands. In the square, everyone's anticipation was lifted by Lin Feng. There was no other reason. Lin Feng's words were too wonderful. Not only did he talk about the future of the Soul Master Alliance, but he also talked about the benefits that every Soul Master Force would gain in the future. These things stimulated everyone. All right, I have spoken for so long. Now, I will summarize for everyone. Lin Feng smiled and said, within a year, the Soul Master Alliance will build a complete ecosystem that encompasses the entire Heaven Do Empire. Furthermore, we will build a base in every city, just like the Martial Spirit Branch Hall. In the second year, our goal will be to unify the Soul Master world and conquer the Martial Spirit Branch Hall. In the third year, we will absorb the Soul Master forces of the Star Luo Empire and complete the ecosystem of the Alliance on the continent. We will expel all evil Soul Masters. In the fourth year, the Soul Master Alliance will integrate all the Soul Master Academies on the continent. Then, we will recompile the teaching materials and impart new Soul Master knowledge. In the fifth year, the Soul Master Alliance will completely change the situation on the continent. By then, all the forces will be more than twice as strong as they are now. Furthermore, the Alliance will affect all ordinary people. What Lin Feng said was actually just a pie in the sky. However, his pie in the sky had a high chance of being realized. In fact, it might even be realized in advance. After all, according to Lin Feng's plan, as long as the Martial Spirit Palace was overthrown, everything else would become simple. In addition to the Soul Master's Soul Tool technology, he might be able to develop a phone within a year. Under such circumstances, he might not even need 5 years. In about 3 years, everything would become as planned. Furthermore, the Soul Master Alliance had gotten off to a good start today. They had captured 13 Soul Masters from the Martial Spirit Branch. If they used these captives as hostages, they might even hasten the destruction of the Martial Spirit Branch Hall. However, Lin Feng was not optimistic about this. He only cared about 2 people in the Martial Spirit Branch Hall, Bibi Dong and Qian Douluo. As for the others, they were not important. On one hand, they were not very strong. On the other hand, they were not very ambitious. Only Bibi Dong was special. He had an unusual ambition and wanted to unify the entire continent. As long as Bibi Dong and Qian Daolu were killed, the martial spirit palace would collapse on its own. Since the two of them were still around, Lin Feng estimated that they would be able to solve the problem of the martial spirit branch hall within 2 years. Today, the Soul Master Alliance is officially established. As he spoke, Lin Feng paused for a moment before continuing. 5 years later, I want everyone on the continent to know the name of the Soul Master Alliance. The name of the Soul Master Alliance will be known throughout the continent. Hearing this, everyone's emotions were stirred up and they started to shout. Known throughout the continent. Known throughout the continent. Known throughout the continent. At this moment, thousands of people in the square cheered. Furthermore, they were all soul masters. Their voices were extremely loud and inspiring. In the center of the square, Lin Feng was not nervous at all despite being watched by so many people. Instead, he was smiling and appeared very confident. Fengge is so handsome. Ning Rongrong looked at Lin Feng with stars in her eyes. At this moment, Lin Feng was too handsome. That speech just now had stirred everyone's emotions. Ma Hongjun also laughed. Fengge is so damn handsome. If I were standing in the center, I would probably be so nervous that I wouldn't even be able to speak. Xiao Wu said, "Of course, who is Fengge?" When we were at Nodding Elementary Soul Master Academy, Fengge spoke in front of hundreds of people. Just like today, he also stirred up the atmosphere. Fatty, you will never be able to compare to him. Ma Hongjun, no. I'm looking down on people too much. When I become a titled Douluo, I will also be stronger than Fengge today. Forget it. Oscar added, when you become a titled Douluo, Fengge will probably be a god. What's the point of comparing yourself to him today? Ha ha ha. Hearing this, everyone laughed. On the side, Zhu Zhuqing stared at Lin Feng in the square with a smile on his face. While they were talking, the cheers in the square gradually weakened. Lin Feng finally smiled and said, "Okay, that's the conclusion. Today's first Soul Master Alliance convention has come to a successful end. Finally, let us all congratulate the Soul Master Alliance. Congratulations to the Soul Master Alliance. Congratulations to the Soul Master Alliance." Another round of cheers, and the square was boiling again. But this time, Lin Feng didn't say anything else. Instead, he handed the stage to Ning Fengji and Tang San. His mission for today was completed and it was time to rest. The main reason was that he had exhausted too much of his spiritual power when chasing Bibi Dong, so he was a little sleepy. Otherwise, he would have continued to talk. Soon, Ning Fengji and Tang San took over from Lin Feng and continued to talk with everyone. When they were talking just now, Lin Feng had already sent them the rules of contribution points. Now, they were going to talk about contribution points. Chapter 457. In the plaza, Ning Fengji and Tang San were explaining the plan for the contribution points to everyone. As this was more detailed, the two of them took a long time to explain. It would probably take 1 or 2 hours to finish. After that, the two of them had to gather all the soul masters who were hall masters and above for a meeting to continue talking about the plan. By the time they were done, it would probably be nighttime. Lin Feng naturally didn't have much energy to listen to this. After coming down from the plaza, he went to find Ning Rongrong, Grandmaster, and the others and talked to them for a while. The main problem was the allocation of positions. As the management of contribution points required reliable manpower, Lin Feng was prepared to let Flanders, Zhao Wuji, and the others manage it. As for Grandmaster and Oscar, they were assigned to the Research Institute. One was the dean and the other was the vice dean. Other than that, there were some other positions that Lin Feng assigned to Ning Rongrong, Zhu Zhuqing, Ma Hongjun, and the others. Of course, Ning Rongrong and the others couldn't occupy all the positions. Lin Feng had told Ning Fengji earlier that all the unimportant positions could be delegated. Anyway, the Soul Master Alliance's goal was very ambitious. It was to develop in all aspects. There was still a huge shortage of talents. After giving some instructions, Lin Feng didn't bother much and went to sleep. On the other hand, everything in the plaza developed according to Lin Feng's expectations. Today was very smooth. In the blink of an eye, it was evening. BB Dong led the remnants of the martial spirit hall and fled all the way. Now, they finally arrived in Martial Spirit City. Following that, BB Dong didn't say a word and dismissed everyone. Then, she was alone in her room, deep in thought. She was thinking about why their sneak attack today failed so badly. It was clearly a chance for the Martial Spirit Hall to rise, but in the end, it ended up like this. Why? Was the difference in strength between the two sides big? Actually, it wasn't big. The Douluo and Soul Sages from the Soul Master Alliance didn't even make a move from the beginning to the end. The only reason why they were completely defeated was because of Thanos. That guy was definitely not weaker than the Thousand Dao Stream. All this time, BB Dong had underestimated him. Or, to put another way, this guy hid too deeply. From the beginning, when Yu Guan and Ghost first came into contact with him, in BB Dong's impression, Thanos was very strong, but at most, he was level 98 or level 99. She did not expect him to be so strong today. Even if she borrowed the power of God, she could not do anything to Thanos. No, it wasn't that he couldn't do anything about it. In fact, BB Dong felt a little regretful now. Previously, when she had attacked Thanos with all her strength, he had remained unscathed. After that, she had been frightened and had immediately fled. In fact, now that she thought about it, Thanos must have been seriously injured at that time. If she had pursued him again, perhaps Thanos would have been killed by her. After all, if Thanos was really strong enough to take her attack without being injured, then none of them would have been able to return alive. Unfortunately, BB Dong was too shocked to realize this and missed the best opportunity. But now, there was nothing she could do except regret. After all, there was a price to pay for borrowing the power of God. Now, not only had the difficulty of BB Dong's divine test increased, her chances of completing the 9 tests had also decreased. However, this level was still within her acceptable range. At the same time, BB Dong also had a motivation in her heart. Thanos of the Marvel family had caused the Martial Spirit Hall to be on the verge of destruction. BB Dong's current goal was to destroy the Marvel family and then break up the Soul Master Alliance. Of course, these were not things that BB Dong wanted to do now. Her current priority was to stabilize the Martial Spirit Hall. Then, she needed to find a way to quickly pass the divine test and become a god. She estimated that Thanos' current soul power should only be at level 99. He had not broken through the final hurdle to become a god. If she became a god, her strength would be much stronger than it was now. Destroying the Soul Master Alliance would not be a problem. After thinking this through, BB Dong quickly discarded his previous emotions and calmed down again. He began to gather the elders for the ceremony. Not only the elders, but the great consecrators also appeared. Even the great consecrator, Douluo, came. After all, such a big thing had happened to the Martial Spirit Hall. They had no choice but to come. In fact, Douluo knew about BB Dong's sneak attack on the Soul Master Alliance in advance. However, his thoughts were the same as BB Dong's. He didn't think much of this alliance and thought that this attack would be foolproof. He didn't expect such a thing to happen in the end. The Martial Spirit Hall suffered heavy losses. 13 powerhouses died. Everyone was alarmed. After a while, the remaining elders and consecrators of the Martial Spirit Hall came to the Pope's palace. This Soul Master Alliance is too arrogant. How dare they do this to our Martial Spirit Hall? They're in Heaven Dose City, right? Let's quickly gather the Soul Master army and kill. The second consecrator, Gold Crocodile Douluo, said angrily. The reason why the Martial Spirit Hall could become the strongest force on the continent was not because of these elders. It was because of the tens of thousands of mid-level soul masters. They had more than 1,000 soul sages. Douluo had more than 200 soul sages. There were even more soul emperors and soul kings. There were 2,000 to 3,000 of them. The rest were soul ancestors, soul elders, and other low-level soul masters. With such a large army of soul masters, they were stronger than any empire. That was why they were so strong. Even though they had lost 13 powerhouses, the Martial Spirit Hall was still very strong. That was why Gold Crocodile, Douluo wanted to attack the Soul Master Alliance. Gold Crocodile, don't be anxious. This matter needs to be discussed at length. Ghost Leopard Douluo hurriedly said. He was the 5th consecrator of a martial spirit hall. He had followed Bibi Dong to Heaven-Do City with the 4th consecrator, Blood Soul Douluo. They knew how strong Thanos was, so they were very cautious. The other consecrators had only just found out about this matter. They didn't have time to understand the details, so they just wanted to fight. You're still not anxious? Gold Crocodile Douluo glared and said angrily, the Soul Master Alliance has killed so many people from the Martial Spirit Hall. If we don't fight back, the Martial Spirit Hall will lose all face. Gold Crocodile Douluo was a rank 98 powerhouse. Ghost Leopard subconsciously shut his mouth when he unleashed his aura. On the high platform, Bibi Dong didn't say a word. He just watched quietly and waited for the group to finish their discussion. Stop talking. Suddenly, Qiandao Lu spoke up. As the Grand Consecrator of a Martial Spirit Hall and the rank 99 Peerless Douluo, Qiandao Lu's words carried a lot of weight. The moment he spoke, the hall fell silent. At this moment, Qiandao Lu looked at Bibi Dong and said, Your Highness, tell us about your plan. Qiandao Lu knew Bibi Dong very well. When he came in just now, he knew that Bibi Dong must have already made a plan. After hearing Qiandao Lu's words, everyone in the hall quickly looked at Bibi Dong. Some were calm, some were admiring, and some were resentful. After all, the Martial Spirit Hall had lost 13 powerhouses today. The main reason was Bibi Dong, so it was normal for them to resent him. Bibi Dong's expression didn't change at all. She said indifferently, I suggest that the Martial Spirit Hall not take the initiative to attack for now. Thanos of the Marvel family is very strong. We won't benefit from fighting him head-on. Strictly speaking, the best choice was to eliminate the Soul Master Alliance when they had just been established. Bibi Dong had chosen to launch a sneak attack with this idea. But now, after this battle and Bibi Dong's careful consideration, she finally gave up this idea. On one hand, the risk was too great. If the Martial Spirit Hall went all out, it was very likely that both sides would suffer in the end. In that case, even if the Martial Spirit Hall won, they would be destroyed by the two empires in the end. This was not what she wanted to see. On the other hand, Bibi Dong only had one idea now, and that was to complete the divine exam and then inherit the Rakshasa, God's inheritance. She wanted to be stronger, so she needed a stable time to develop. Thanos is strong, but no matter how strong he is only one person. We have so many soul masters in the Martial Spirit Hall. Why should we be afraid of him? Golden Crocodile said angrily. He had a bad temper, so he was very angry at this moment. In his opinion, Bibi Dong had to take the main responsibility for the deaths of so many people in the Martial Spirit Hall, but she chose not to fight back. This was a sign of cowardice. Third Reverend Holy Dragon also said, now that the Martial Spirit Alliance has just been established, their control of the forces under them is not strong. It is the best time for us to attack now. Blood Soul Douluo said, although that is the case, the Soul Master Alliance is now established. When we gather the army to attack, they will react. Most importantly, the headquarters of the Soul Master Alliance is in Heaven-Do City, which is also the capital of the Heaven-Do Empire. If we attack the Soul Master Alliance, the Heaven-Do Empire will fight back. It is still very dangerous for the Martial Spirit Hall to fight two people alone. This was not unreasonable. If it was 1 against 2, the Martial Spirit Hall was still a little uncertain. For a moment, the hall fell into deep thought. Qiandao Lu was also thinking and did not speak. At this moment, Bibi Dong spoke. The next step of the Soul Master Alliance's plan is definitely to swallow the forces of the Martial Spirit Hall in the Heaven-Do Empire. For now, it is not suitable for us to fight them head-on. So, I have decided to call back the core forces of the Martial Spirit Hall in the Heaven-Do Empire and defend Martial Spirit City. At the same time, we will ensure that the branch in the Star Luo Empire is not lost. The strength of the Martial Spirit Hall was not inferior to the Martial Spirit Alliance. If they really defended Martial Spirit City, Thanos would not be able to do anything to them in the short term. Give up on the branch in the Heaven-Do Empire? This is unreasonable. Gold Crocodile Douluo was so angry that he did not know what to say. One had to know that the Martial Spirit Hall had spent a lot of effort to open up branches all over the continent. Now that they were withdrawing from the Heaven-Do Empire, they were shaking the foundation of the Martial Spirit Hall. This was too ridiculous. Gold Crocodile Douluo could not accept it. Bibi Dong did not say anything. He only asked, then, "Revered Gold Crocodile, what do you think? Do you still need to think?" "Of course, we will gather the army and attack them." Gold Crocodile Douluo said angrily, "Giving up on the branch in the Heaven-Do Empire is no different from surrendering to the Heaven-Do Empire." If it was under normal circumstances, Gold Crocodile could calm down and think. However, he was still angry, so he did not think before speaking. Bibi Dong shook his head. "The Blood Soul Revered Elder has said that this will not work. We haven't even fought yet. How can it not work just by talking? We will only know the situation after we fight." Gold Crocodile Douluo said stubbornly. He had not seen how strong Thanos was. All the information about the Soul Master Alliance and the Marvel family were just rumors. That was why he said such foolish words. At the side, Thousand Dao Lu suddenly said, "Let's do as His Majesty the Pope said. Withdraw the Soul Masters and the Heaven-Do Empire back to the Martial Spirit City." As the head revered elder, Thousand Dao Lu had spoken. This matter was settled. After speaking, he could not be bothered to explain anything and directly left. Thousand Dao Lu knew Bibi Dong's character. He was very strong and was very cautious. He would not do things that he was not confident in. Now that she had suffered a big loss, and coupled with her current choice, it was obvious that the Soul Master Alliance's strength had exceeded her expectations. They were very strong. In this way, before the Martial Spirit Hall understood the situation of the Soul Master Alliance, it was not suitable for them to attack immediately. Of course, Thousand Dao Lu would not let Bibi Dong mess around. After leaving the main hall, he quickly sent people to Heaven-Do City to investigate. In the main hall, after Thousand Dao Lu had settled the matter, Bibi Dong's following words were much simpler. Gold Alligator Douluo no longer disagreed with her. Under such circumstances, Bibi Dong quickly explained some of the arrangements. In the blink of an eye, half an hour had passed. Everyone in the main hall had received their tasks and went to work. Originally, the revered elders were not under Bibi Dong's control, and they would not do anything. However, Thousand Dao Lu's words earlier meant that he had temporarily handed the revered elders over to Bibi Dong, so they all received their tasks and went to do it. At the same time, in Heaven-Do City, the Soul Master Alliance's meeting had finally ended. After all, it was the first day of the Alliance's establishment, and the explanation of the positions and rules took a lot of time. Later on, it would take much less time. After a period of time, the Soul Master Alliance would be on the right track, and everything would become easier. Just like that, with beautiful expectations, everyone in the Soul Master Alliance fell asleep. The next morning, outside Martial Spirit City, Douluo, who had been rushing all the way, arrived. Yesterday, after setting off from Heaven-Do City, he had traveled all the way south without stopping at all. Even at night, he was still rushing. He had visited all the cities along the way, but he did not stay for long. He only asked around for information and left. Just like that, he walked and stopped and arrived outside Heaven-Do City the next morning. During this time, he did not hear any information about Bibi Dong and the others. This could only mean one thing. Either Bibi Dong and the others had already arrived at Martial Spirit City, or they were hiding somewhere. Chapter 458. The way to check if Bibi Dong was in Martial Spirit City was very simple. He just had to enter the city to investigate. If he found any news of Bibi Dong, he would immediately return to report. If not, he would wait for 7 days. Of course, Bai Shuiyang wasn't in a hurry to go in to investigate. He had been rushing for a day and night, and his soul power had been greatly depleted. What he needed to do now was to recover his soul power before he went in to investigate. Just like that, Bai Shuiyang spent an hour meditating in a small mountain outside Martial Spirit City to recover his soul power. After that, he walked towards Martial Spirit City. Things went very smoothly, even exceeding by Xiuyang's expectations. Originally, he heard from Thanos that this mission was very dangerous, so he was very careful and vigilant. He thought that after entering Martial Spirit City, he would quickly leave if anything went wrong. However, when he really entered, he realized that the city was very peaceful, and there wasn't a trace of killing intent. It only took him half an hour to find out that Bibi Dong had returned. Furthermore, he heard that the Martial Spirit Hall was preparing to call back all the Soul Masters in the Heaven Do Empire. This was very important. After hearing the news, Bai Xiuyang didn't stay for long. He quickly left Martial Spirit City and rushed towards the Soul Master Alliance. The reason why this investigation was so simple was actually because Bai Xiuyang was lucky. This was because Bibi Dong and the others didn't think that the Soul Master Alliance would send people over so quickly. They didn't even expect this. Therefore, Bai Xiuyang saw that Martial Spirit City was as peaceful as usual. Just like that, Bai Xiuyang returned to the Shrek Academy after half a day. Although the Soul Master Alliance wasn't as lively as yesterday, there were still many people, more than 300 of them. Furthermore, most of them were vice leaders and vice leaders. As for the leaders and leaders, they had all gone home to get things. What were they going to do with things? Of course, they were going to exchange them for contribution points. After yesterday's explanation, everyone realized the importance of contribution points. There would probably be a frenzy of contribution points in the next few days. After all, the things that the Soul Master Alliance had taken out were too attractive. Spiritual power cultivation techniques, soul power control techniques, soul tool technology, soul skill disassembly methods, detailed disassembly of soul skill models, and so on. Countless treasures were listed on the exchange list. Every item could shake the world of soul masters. These items were enough to make all factions go crazy. Of course, not every force could exchange for these things. The more impactful an item was, the more contribution points it would require to exchange for it. However, some small forces simply didn't have that many resources. In the end, they would probably only be able to exchange for soul skill strengthening models. But even so, the benefits of these models were unimaginable. As long as they could comprehend them, the power of their soul skills would increase when they released them in the future. As long as you were talented enough, you could even deduce other things and come up with more ways to strengthen yourself. As for those large factions, they did not have to be so poor. As long as they were willing to spend money, they should be able to save up a large number of contribution points. At that time, the spiritual power cultivation method, soul power control method, and so on would probably all be exchanged. Of course, Lin Feng had set restrictions for such an important item. It was not allowed to be spread out, and only one person could use it at a time. If others wanted to learn it, they would have to pay the contribution points again. If anyone violated the rules, Thanos would personally cripple their soul power. The deterrence of these words was still full. After all, in yesterday's battle, Slayer Overlord had fully displayed his strength. Actually, Lin Feng had thought about whether or not he should set the exchange condition for these good items a little higher. However, after thinking about it, he realized that there was no need for that. On one hand, it might dampen the enthusiasm of the members of the Alliance. On the other hand, if the requirements were too high, it might seem out of reach. On the other hand, it could quickly show the usefulness of the Soul Master Alliance. At the same time, it would give people hope. For example, soul power control methods were currently sold for 100,000 contribution points. However, the efficiency of obtaining contribution points from donations was not very high. A third-class soul stone was only worth 1 contribution point. A third-class soul stone was worth 100 gold soul coins. With this as the standard, 100,000 contribution points would require 10 million gold soul coins. In the entire Heaven Do Empire, there were probably only 2 factions that could fork out 10 million gold soul coins in one go: the 7 Treasures Glazed Sect and the Imperial Family of the Heaven Do Empire. Of course, this was not absolute. Some resources could be exchanged for large amounts of contribution points due to their rarity. There were also some things that had a high demand for soul tool technology. The exchange rate for contribution points was also very high. If one were to calculate, there were probably 5 or 6 factions that could fork out 100,000 contribution points. In the end, the number of people who could use soul power control methods would definitely be more than that. This was because the Soul Master Alliance had a rule that Soul Masters could get discounts based on their positions. Deacons could get a 5% discount, Hall Masters could get a 10% discount, Elders could get a 20% discount, and Chairmen could get a 30% discount. As for the Alliance Master, he could use it for free. It was a special privilege. Furthermore, other than the contribution points that could be obtained by donating resources, the Soul Master Alliance would also issue many missions that could be obtained after completion. For example, the Alliance had issued many missions this morning. Some were to find special materials, some required special soul rings, and some even required road repairs. That's right, road repairs. After all, the Soul Master Alliance would become the #1 faction on the continent in the future. They couldn't keep using the Shrek Academy's door, right? Hence, from today onwards, they would start from the other side of the forest. While they repaired the road, they would also expand the area. In any case, what they built in the end had to be worthy of the title of the #1 faction. Needless to say, these road repairs missions didn't reward many contribution points. In fact, they only gave 10 contribution points a day. However, because it was one of the few missions that had just been issued, and the requirements were very low, they were all accepted not long after they were issued. Just like that, from today onwards, more than 30 Soul Masters with special martial souls started work on the construction team under Zhao Wuji's supervision. Oh yes, the Soul Master Alliance's mission system wasn't inflexible. Alliance members could issue missions on the platform. No matter what mission it was, as long as it was rewarded with contribution points, they could issue missions. As for the price, the Martial Soul Alliance didn't set any rules. Employers and employees could discuss the price. If they felt that it was reasonable, they could accept the mission. The Soul Master Alliance's main purpose was to place the platform here. Furthermore, it had a certain level of credibility. Employers had to place their contribution points in the Soul Master Alliance in advance. Oh yes, because employers wanted to use the platform, the Soul Master Alliance had to charge a service fee. It wasn't just the missions. The Soul Master Alliance also had a store district and a trading platform. The store district was a place for the various large organizations to set up shop. The Soul Master Alliance had to charge a service fee for the items they sold. If the Soul Master Alliance opened a store, they didn't have to pay the service fee. The trading platform was mainly fair and just. After all, there was a saying that a man's wealth was his own ruin. Some low-ranked Soul Masters might be lucky enough to obtain treasures. Under normal circumstances, they would use the treasures for themselves. However, they would trade some items that they couldn't use. If it was in the past, they would have to face the possibility of being robbed or reneged on their contracts if they wanted to trade. However, this wasn't the case in the Martial Soul Alliance. You could trade without worry. There would be strong individuals in the Alliance who would ensure the safety of your trade. Correspondingly, you would only have to pay a service fee. Of course, the currency required for all these activities was contribution points. Perhaps this wasn't obvious in the short term. However, as time passed, Soul Masters would be used to using contribution points to trade. The Martial Soul Alliance's status would be the same as the Martial Soul Hall. It would be a holy land for all Soul Masters. Not only that, they would surpass the Martial Soul Alliance and reach a new height. After all, the Soul Master Alliance's ultimate goal was the entire continent. It wasn't like the Martial Soul Hall, which only served Soul Masters. When everyone on the Douluo continent acknowledged the Martial Soul Alliance, it would be very difficult for such a power to decline. Of course, these plans were very long-term. They couldn't be completed overnight. Today was the second day after the Soul Master Alliance was established. Many of the plans were being perfected. Lin Feng's avatar, Thanos, was participating. On one hand, there were many things that only he knew. It couldn't be done without his participation. On the other hand, it was to ensure the safety of the Soul Master Alliance. After all, BB Dong's whereabouts were still unknown. He had a guard against him. On the other hand, Lin Feng's main body was planning the laboratory with Master He and the others. After all, this was the second most important foundation for the Soul Master Alliance, apart from the contribution point system. Only by constantly producing new things would the Soul Master Alliance be able to attract the attention of the other major powers. Therefore, this laboratory was very important. At this moment, Elder Bai Shuiyang came into the hall. After seeing him, Thanos immediately stopped the meeting and ran over. Elder Shuiyang, you're back. Tell us, how did the investigation go? Hearing this, everyone also looked over. They were also very concerned about this. BB Dong has arrived at Martial Soul City. Bai Shuiyang said, that's good news. It seems like the Martial Soul Hall won't be a threat to Heaven Do City for the time being. Thanos nodded. Originally, he thought that if BB Dong stayed nearby, the Soul Masters who went home to exchange resources for contribution points would be in danger. Now, it seemed like they didn't have to worry too much. Oh yes, I also found out something special. What is it? Thanos asked hurriedly. Recently, the Martial Soul Hall is preparing to summon all the core Soul Masters of the Martial Soul Branch Hall to Martial Soul City. Bai Shuiyang said, this news came from the Pontiff's palace. I think it's most likely from Pontiff BB Dong. Are you sure? I'm sure. I asked a few people, and they all said the same thing. Furthermore, Martial Soul City isn't guarded at all. As usual, it's most likely true. Bai Shuiyang said seriously. If that's the case, it can only mean one thing. Thanos smiled. The Martial Soul Hall is afraid. Because of the Thousand Dao stream, Lin Feng was still a little worried that BB Dong would bring people to attack. However, from the current situation, it was clear that BB Dong and the others chose to defend instead of attacking. This was a good thing. In Lin Feng's original plan, the Soul Master Alliance would need about a year and a half to establish a branch in the Heaven Do Empire. However, if the Martial Soul Hall took the initiative to withdraw, the process would be greatly accelerated. In about half a year, they would be able to take over the Heaven Do Empire. The Martial Soul Hall is afraid? When everyone heard this, they felt like they were dreaming. They weren't doubting it. After all, it was Thanos who said it. A powerhouse like him wouldn't speak without thinking. They were mainly surprised. A force like the Martial Soul Hall was unreachable in their eyes. They were the #1 force on the continent, and no one dared to challenge them. However, after 2 days, they captured 13 powerhouses from the Martial Soul Hall on the first day. On the second day, the Martial Soul Hall didn't dare to fight back. They were afraid. This was really a pity. It's just a metaphor. At least they don't dare to fight us head-on now. Thanos smiled. Mr. Destroy, what about the 13 captives from the Martial Soul Hall? Tang Xin asked. Yesterday, the Soul Master Alliance's internal department had further divided the positions. Thanos became the law-enforcing elder, and Ning Fengji became the deputy alliance leader. However, Tang San was used to calling Thanos Mr. Destroy, and he didn't change it at this time. Keep those captives as sparring partners. You can learn from them when you have nothing to do. During the monthly teaching exam, you can also use them as sparring partners. The Soul Master Alliance had a lot of things to do these days, so they didn't have much time to take care of these captives. After a while, Lin Feng would start to squeeze experience point from them. There was also the monthly teaching exam, which was a big way to earn experience points, and it had to be put on the agenda. Isn't it too dangerous to use them as sparring partners? After all, they are all titled Douluo Soul Masters. They are very destructive. Ning Fengji hesitated. Now that the Soul Master Alliance and the Martial Soul Hall were in a hostile relationship, it was not advisable to use these captives to negotiate for benefits. After all, this was helping the enemy. The best choice was to kill them directly. It was simple, fast, and reassuring. Don't worry about their destructive power. Just pay attention to the venue. Thanos smiled and said, and I will be there during the teaching exam, so I can guarantee their safety. During normal times, I will seal their soul power. Except for me, no one else can undo it, so there won't be any danger. Hiss. Hearing this, with the exception of a few people, the rest of the people were shocked and gasped. It was terrifying to be able to completely seal the soul power of a titled Douluo. After all, that was a titled Douluo. Before this, Everyone had the impression that a titled Douluo was invincible. But now a titled Douluo was like a toy in the hands of Thanos. Chapter 459. Hong Yifeng, Ning Fengji, and the others weren't surprised at all. This was because they were just as shocked when they found out about this. After all, this was beyond their comprehension. It was like the domain of gods. Thanos didn't say much about this. He nodded and said, "The matter of the captives is settled. Let's continue to discuss the development of the alliance. The establishment of the branches will also be on the agenda." Elder Shuiyang, that's your seat. There's some information about the alliance on it. You can take a look and give your opinions. Oh. Bai Shuiyang replied blankly. All right, let's continue. Thanos clapped his hands to get everyone's attention. Soon, in the conference hall, the heated discussion sounded again, but this time, it was a little different. Everyone's respect for Thanos was a little more. After knowing BB Dong's arrangements, Lin Feng's plan became more efficient. Besides the Soul Master Alliance's plan, there was one more thing he needed to do. That was to find the Snowy Night Emperor. If the Soul Master Alliance wasn't too ambitious and only wanted to unify the world of Soul Masters, Lin Feng wouldn't care about the Heaven Do Imperial family. He could be like the Martial Soul Hall now and become a third-party superpower. Unfortunately, Lin Feng's goal was the entire continent, not just the world of Soul Masters. Therefore, if the Soul Master Alliance wanted to achieve their ultimate goal, the Heaven Do Imperial family was a hurdle they had to cross. The two were opposites and couldn't coexist. Right now, Lin Feng wanted to find the Snowy Night Emperor to talk about the Soul Master Alliance. After all, many of the things that the Soul Master Alliance wanted to do involved the core interests of the Heaven Do Empire. He had to solve this problem. Otherwise, when the Soul Master Alliance established branches in the various cities, not only would they have to guard against the Martial Soul Hall, but they would also have to guard against the Snowy Night Emperor. Now that he had solved this problem, he just had to keep an eye on the Martial Soul Hall. Of course, Lin Feng didn't want to swallow the Heaven Do Empire or control the Imperial family right now. Now was not the right time. He had to wait until the Martial Spirit Palace was destroyed. Only then could he consider the matter of the two empires. With these thoughts in mind, Lin Feng arrived at the entrance of the palace. He wasn't here as a private individual. Instead, he was here as the External Affairs Elder of the Soul Master Alliance. The Foreign Affairs Elder was an elder in charge of foreign affairs. It was one of Lin Feng's positions in the alliance. Furthermore, Lin Feng's status in the Soul Master Alliance was very high because of his status as a deacon of the Marvel family, as well as his good relationship with Ning Fengji and Tang San. The Soul Master Alliance had already informed the Snowy Night Emperor about the arrival of the Soul Master Alliance. He was very serious about this and sent the Crown Prince, Xue Qinghe, to personally receive them. At this moment, Lin Feng had just reached the entrance when Xue Qinghe, who had been waiting for a while, walked out accompanied by a few palace attendants. Elder Lin Feng, His Majesty is already waiting for you. Please come in. Xue Qinghe clasped his hands towards Lin Feng. They were here for official business. Although the two of them had a personal relationship, they didn't express it too much. Your Highness, please lead the way. Lin Feng smiled. He didn't say anything else. Just like that, Lin Feng walked into the palace under Xue Qinghe's guidance. The so-called palace was actually a city within the Heaven Do City. It was very similar to the Forbidden City in his previous life. In the past, Lin Feng had investigated the palace more than once. However, he only paid attention to the two titled Douluo. Walking on the main road of the Imperial Palace like this was a different experience. Pure white marble was laid on the road. As he walked, the soles of his shoes would make stomping sounds as they hit the ground. There were trees and flowers in the surroundings. The pavilions in the distance were arranged in picturesque disorder. It was very pleasing to the eye. It had to be said that the nobles and royal families in Douluo's world enjoyed themselves very much. How many gold soul coins did they spend to decorate this place? Of course, this thought only flashed through Lin Feng's mind for a moment before disappearing. The group walked slowly. Along the way, Xue Qinghe continued to explain the layout of the palace to Lin Feng. After about 10 minutes, Xue Qinghe brought Lin Feng to a large courtyard with high walls. His Majesty is waiting in the courtyard. Elder Lin Feng, follow me in. As he spoke, Xue Qinghe waved at the few guards, indicating for them to wait here. Let's go. Lin Feng nodded and followed Xue Qinghe into the courtyard. The decorations here were more luxurious than outside. Expensive trees and flowers were planted everywhere. Lin Feng even saw a moon tree. That's right, it was the same as Little Moon's main body. However, this one didn't have any soul power undulations. It was just an ordinary plant. As if he realized that Lin Feng was attracted by the surrounding scenery, Xue Qinghe explained, "This is His Majesty's backyard. Normally, only important people are received here. Therefore, the cost is quite high. The backyard was only valuable because of the flowers and trees. In terms of construction cost, it was estimated to cost more than 100,000 gold soul coins. Don't think that 100,000 gold soul coins wasn't a lot. One had to know that this was just a courtyard. When the entire palace was built, the money spent was in the hundreds of millions." "Oh, I see." Lin Feng nodded. He understood now. At this moment, the two of them arrived at the empty space in front of the courtyard. Elder Lin Feng of the Soul Master Alliance is indeed young and promising. Ha ha ha! The snowy Night Emperor laughed heartily in the empty space. Beside him, Douluo accompanied him and stood quietly. As for the other underworld wolf Douluo in the palace, he was cultivating in a secret room. He was preparing to break through to rank 93. "Greetings, Emperor Shui." Lin Feng bowed slightly. He was neither servile nor overbearing. There was a square table in the middle of the empty space. There were some fruits and food on it. It was obvious that they had been prepared. At this moment, Shui extended his hand towards the table and said, "Elder Lin Feng, please take a seat. We can talk as we eat. It'll be more relaxing this way." "You're too polite," Lin Feng said politely, but he didn't stop moving. He sat down on a chair. Shui saw this and sat opposite Lin Feng. He was all smiles. As for Xue Qinghe and Douluo, they didn't sit down. They just stood quietly not far away. Although the two of them didn't talk about anything, it was definitely important. Therefore, both sides were quite formal. "Let's not beat around the bush. Emperor Shui, the Soul Master Alliance, sent me here today for a simple reason. We want Emperor Shui to give us some preferential treatment." As soon as he sat down, Lin Feng spoke. He wasn't polite at all. Hearing this, Emperor Shui's expression was amiable. However, he was cursing in his heart. He knew that Lin Feng wasn't here to talk about anything good. However, could he refuse? If he could, he would have brought 10,000 Soul Masters to cause trouble when the Soul Master Alliance was established yesterday. However, the truth was that he couldn't refuse. The Soul Master Alliance was a trend in the world of Soul Masters. The Marvel family, the Clear Sky sect, the Seven Treasures Glaze sect, the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon, and many other Soul Master factions had joined. If Emperor Shui dared to stop them, it would be equivalent to going against half of the world of Soul Masters. In the end, the entire Heaven-Do Empire would be in turmoil. In the end, both sides would suffer. Right now, he had allowed the Soul Master Alliance to continue existing because he had no other choice. At most, there would be another Martial Soul Hall. Speaking of which, this might be a good thing. After all, the Soul Master Alliance was a Soul Master faction within the Heaven-Do Empire. Furthermore, Shui knew many of the leaders of these factions. If they could destroy the Martial Soul Hall, perhaps the Heaven-Do Empire could use this opportunity to unify the entire continent. In Emperor Shui's heart, he had never thought that the Soul Master Alliance would replace the Heaven-Do Empire. He wasn't the only one. Other than Tang San and Lin Feng, even Grandmaster Ning Fengji and the rest of the members of the Soul Master Alliance probably didn't have such thoughts. After all, the Heaven-Do Empire was their homeland. They wouldn't overthrow it. The purpose of joining the Soul Master Alliance was only for the things in the Alliance. At the same time, they could join forces to resist the Martial Soul Hall. Of course, these were only short-term thoughts. Once they were bound by the Soul Master Alliance, it would be very easy to control them. Lin Feng only needed to use his contribution points to make them work for him. Even overthrowing the Heaven-Do Empire wouldn't be difficult. Preferential treatment? What kind of preferential treatment? Emperor Shui Yi asked. I hope that your majesty can give the Soul Master Alliance 5 years of tax exemption. At the same time, the Soul Master Alliance will open a branch in the Heaven Do Empire. I hope that your majesty won't interfere. Soul Masters were an extremely special profession. Whether it was in the Douluo Empire or the Heaven Do Empire, they enjoyed preferential treatment. As for the Alliance of Soul Masters, as an organization of Soul Masters, they had many privileges. However, Lin Feng felt that this wasn't enough. In particular, Lin Feng had to negotiate properly with the Soul Master Alliance about taxes. Otherwise, the Soul Master Alliance would be working for the Heaven Do Empire. This was something that Lin Feng couldn't accept. As for the branch being interfered with, it was less important. After all, the Heaven Do Empire was far away. The Heaven Do Empire's royal family had the most control over Heaven Do City. As for the other duchies, kingdoms, and cities, it was very difficult for them to control them. Lin Feng only needed to control the local Soul Master organizations in these places. Nothing else mattered. I'm very supportive of opening a branch in the Heaven Do Empire. As the Soul Master Alliance grows stronger, the Heaven Do Empire will also become stronger. As he spoke, Shui Yi changed the topic. However, isn't it a little inappropriate to exempt the tax for 5 years? I feel that reducing the tax by half for 5 years is fine. Within the Heaven Do Empire, whether it was a normal person, a soul master organization, or a family, as long as one was a citizen of the Heaven Do Empire, they had to pay taxes. These taxes were the foundation of the empire. They could not pay. Of course, due to different statuses and different types of taxes, each person or organization had to pay different amounts of taxes. Normally, a normal person would only pay 10% of their land tax. However, the business tax would be 20%. Soul Masters would have their taxes reduced by half. However, the tax paid by Soul Master organizations was between that of a normal person and a Soul Master. However, they didn't have to pay taxes. They were also exempted from many miscellaneous taxes. They mainly had to pay 15% business tax. Some stronger organizations, such as the 3 upper sects, only had to pay 8%. This low tax rate was also enjoyed by some subordinate organizations. Therefore, many Soul Master organizations and families would choose to subordinate themselves to a stronger organization. For example, the Strength and Agility clans under the Clear Sky sect. The Seven Treasures Glaze sect also had more than 10 subordinate organizations. The reason why these organizations were subordinate was because the Clear Sky sect and the Seven Treasures Glaze sect were strong. The other reason was because of this low tax rate. Although there was only a difference of 7% between the two organizations, this small 7% was still a huge amount of wealth. Therefore, this tax reduction was very tempting. As for the Soul Master Alliance, it was considered a super organization. After it was established yesterday, Ning Fengji even brought Tang San to the officials to register it. Furthermore, because of the 3 upper sects, the Soul Master Alliance could enjoy 8% of the tax. They were also exempted from miscellaneous taxes. The Douluo Empire's tax rate was about the same as the Heaven Do Empire's. Now, that Shui Yi said that they would be exempted from half of the tax for 5 years. This meant that the Soul Master Alliance would only have to pay 4% of the tax for 5 years. This tax rate was actually very low. It could be said that there was no other organization with such a low tax rate in the entire empire. However, Lin Feng only wanted one thing: a 0 tax rate. Your Majesty, how about this? Let's not talk about reducing the tax rate by half for 5 years. The Soul Master Alliance will also take a step back and reduce the tax rate for 2 years. Is that okay? Lin Feng's negotiation was very skillful. His goal was to reduce the tax rate for 1 year. This was because time was useless. He was confident that he could replace the Martial Soul Hall within a year. When that happened, their next target would be the 2 empires. Right now, he only said 5 years to give himself a way out. Furthermore, if he lowered his standards, it would be easier for Shui Yi to agree. 2 years of tax exemption. Shui Yi pondered for a moment. After that, he nodded and smiled. Okay, this was just a simple math problem. For 5 years meant a total of 20%. Right now, Lin Feng was asking for 2 years of tax exemption. The tax rate for the next 3 years was 8%. This was 4% higher than what Shui Yi had expected. He had profited. Your Majesty is really straightforward. Then it's settled. The Soul Master Alliance will be exempted from the tax for 2 years. Your Majesty, please draft the document as soon as possible. Lin Feng was full of smiles. No problem. Shui Yi also smiled. At this moment, Shui Yi felt that the negotiation was really easy. He had earned 4% with just one sentence. However, in Lin Feng's heart, he only felt that Shui Yi was too stupid and too easy to fool. There weren't many smart people on the Douluo continent. Chapter 460. Lin Feng had succeeded in this negotiation. Furthermore, it had been carried out perfectly. Right now, both of them thought that they had taken advantage of each other, while the other party was a fool. However, only the heavens knew who had taken advantage of the other party. Oh yes, Your Majesty, this is something that the Soul Master Alliance has created. You can fly after using it. I'll give it to you as a gift. As he spoke, Lin Feng took out a Wings of the Sky from his soul tool and handed it to the Snowy Night Emperor. You're too kind. Shui Yi smiled as he received it. The Wings of the Sky was very famous in Heavendo City. When the Snowy Night Emperor heard about it, he immediately ordered someone to buy one. Furthermore, he had tried to use the Wings of the Sky to fly over the past few days. He had experienced the feeling of being in the wind. It was very magical. Now that Lin Feng had given him the Wings of the Sky, which was worth 30,000 gold coins, he was very happy to receive it for free. In his opinion, this was almost equivalent to the Soul Master Alliance's annual tax revenue. After all, the Snowy Night Emperor's impression of the Soul Master Alliance was that the Soul Master Alliance operated like Ningfengji's. Such an alliance wasn't very profitable. It was already very impressive if they could earn 1,000,000 gold soul coins a year. However, he didn't know how powerful Lin Feng's alliance was. Come. Let's eat. Elder Lin Feng, you must eat and drink well today. After receiving the gift, Shui Yi laughed as he invited Lin Feng to eat. It's all right, Your Majesty. Now that we're done talking, I want to tell the Alliance leader and the elders about this good news. I won't stay any longer. Lin Feng stood up and bowed again. Lin Feng will take his leave. Now that he had achieved his goal, Lin Feng scanned the dining table. There wasn't a single dish that he wanted to eat. Hence, he just wanted to go back as soon as possible. Hearing this, Shui Yi didn't beat around the bush. He smiled and said, Qinghe, send Elder Lin Feng off. Yes, Shui Qinghe replied. Then, he led Lin Feng out of the courtyard. On the other hand, the Snowy Night Emperor, who was in a good mood, didn't continue eating in the courtyard. Instead, he quickly returned to the palace to draft the decree. On the main road of the palace, Shui Qinghe and Lin Feng were walking outside together. After walking for some distance, Shui Qinghe suddenly stopped in his tracks when he arrived at the outer region. He turned around and waved his hand at the few servants. You can leave now. Yes. These people were very tactful. After cupping their hands, they quickly left. Lin Feng wasn't surprised at all. He could tell that Shui Qinghe had something to say to him. The two of them walked for a while and arrived at a small study. After sitting down, Lin Feng chuckled. Speak, what's the matter? It's about the Sea God's Island. Shui Qinghe said, I received news a few days ago that the Sea God's Island is about to be opened. The Sea God's Island is about to be opened? Lin Feng was stunned. This didn't happen in the original novel. Furthermore, he remembered that the Sea God's Island was the place that guarded the inheritance of the Sea God. Although many people knew the name of the island, not many people knew the exact location. Most importantly, the Sea God's Island was in a semi-closed state and wouldn't take the initiative to enter the world. It was equivalent to a hidden power. But now, Shui Qinghe said that the Sea God's Island was about to be opened. What did this mean? That's right. The news said that Sea God's Island has been appearing in the coastal cities recently. They're promoting the Sea God. At the same time, they said that the Sea God's Island is about to be open to the public. Shui Qinghe explained, Are those soul masters really from the Sea God's Island? Also, when is it going to be opened? Lin Feng was puzzled. His first thought was that this news was fake. At the same time, he was very curious about when it would be opened. It's not fake. The news I received said that those soul masters have a unique mark of the sea god's island. So it's true, Shueqinghe replied. As for the time, I'm not very sure. It should be within the next 1 or 2 months. Heavendo City was located in the middle of the Douluo continent. The sea god's island was in the sea to the west of the continent. The coastal cities were quite far from Heavendo City. Unless a tidal Douluo flew there, it would take about 5 days for a normal soul master to walk there. Of course, Shueqinghe's method of obtaining information was through a special large bird. It would take about 2 days. Furthermore, the informants in the coastal cities needed time to gather information. From the time those soul masters from the sea god's island had appeared until now, 10 to 20 days had passed. Therefore, Shueqinghe's estimate of 1 or 2 months was now only about a month or so. Are you sure? Lin Feng asked again. This is the original news. Take a look. Shueqinghe took out a piece of paper from his soul tool and handed it to Lin Feng. Lin Feng received it and quickly finished reading the news. It was just as Shueqinghe had said. Soul masters had appeared on the sea god's island, and they were announcing the opening of the sea god's island in all the major cities. According to the words in the news, Lin Feng deduced that the sea god's island would be opened in a month at most. Of course, this was only an estimate. Lin Feng would have to go to the coastal cities to find out the exact time. However, this would take a lot of time. After all, the situation in the coastal cities was completely different from the inland cities. It wasn't as if you could find out the news immediately. It might take a few days for you to familiarize yourself with the situation there. As for finding out the news, it was even more dependent on luck. If you were lucky, you might find what you wanted in 2 or 3 days. If you were unlucky, you might not find any clues in 10 days or half a month. When Lin Feng had fought his way across the continent, he knew that the coastal cities were more troublesome. Therefore, he didn't stay for long. He left after taking a look around. He didn't even try to find out about the local powers. Therefore, Lin Feng wouldn't do something that he didn't know when it would happen. Furthermore, the Soul Master Alliance had just been established. It was the busiest period of time for him. He would wait until the Soul Master Alliance was on the right track, and he had some plans in place. Then, he would go to the coastal cities to take a look. When that time came, he could hand over the management of the alliance to Ning Fengji. He could also bring Tang San and the others to the Sea God's Island. After all, Shrek's 7 monsters were the main characters. They were all blessed with luck. Lin Feng could avoid a lot of trouble by bringing them along. As he thought about this, Lin Feng smiled at Shueqinghe. You're so considerate. I can't believe you're still paying attention to the Sea God's Island. I'll tell Mr. Destroy about your contribution. I believe he'll reward you. It's nothing. Shueqinghe smiled. Then he continued, I don't mind. I only have one request. If you want to go to the Sea God's Island, can you bring me along? That's right. This was Shueqinghe's main purpose. Originally, he was looking for information about the Sea God's Island mainly because he wanted to join the Marvel family. However, as he researched deeper, he realized that the Sea God's Island was not simple. After flipping through the ancient books in the palace, he discovered that the Sea God's Island might really have the inheritance of the Sea God. Furthermore, the Heaven-Do Empire's national treasure, the vast sea cosmic shroud, might have a certain connection to the Sea God's Island. There were also some miscellaneous information that indicated that the Sea God's Island was not simple. Furthermore, the Marvel family was an extremely powerful hidden family. They had asked him about the Sea God's Island. This also showed that the Sea God's Island was not simple. Because of this, Shueqinghe had a trace of anticipation for the mysterious Sea God's Island. Therefore, after joining the Marvel family, he did not give up on the exploration of the Sea God's Island. He had always sent people to investigate the Sea God's Island. Now, he wanted to use this information to exchange for the right to go to the Sea God's Island with Lin Feng and the others. You want to go too? Lin Feng smiled. Also, how do you know that I'll go to the Sea God's Island? I didn't say that. Yes, I want to go and see the world. Shueqinghe replied. As for how I know you want to go, it's just a guess. Even if Mr. Destroy agrees to take you, as the crown prince, will His Majesty Shui let you go? Don't worry about that. His Majesty values the Soul Master Alliance very much. As long as I explain, he will definitely let me go. Shui Qinghe hurriedly said. Shui Qinghe was not lying about this. The Soul Master Alliance was valued by Emperor Shui Yi far more than Lin Feng imagined. After all, he was dealing with the Soul Master Alliance as a second martial spear hall. On the surface, it seemed that Emperor Shui Yi did not do anything, but in reality, he had taken many precautions. However, these precautions were long-term. Nothing could be seen in a short period of time. In the long run, it was enough to pull the Soul Master Alliance to the Heaven Do Empire's war chariot. Not to mention anything else, Emperor Shui Yi was prepared to pay a visit to the Soul Master Alliance in a few days. This was not an ordinary visit. He was going to represent the entire empire to visit the Soul Master Alliance. The ceremony had to be full and very grand. Under such circumstances, the people of the Soul Master Alliance would be very moved. How should this situation be described? Let's give an example. It was like in the ancient times of his previous life. The local government's army had banded together and formed an alliance in the capital city. In the alliance, many of the generals leading the troops were very familiar with the emperor. If the emperor paid a visit to the alliance, it would be a great honor for the alliance. Not only would these people receive a grand welcome, they would also be deeply grateful. That was the meaning. Emperor Shui Yi had thought it through very well. If the Soul Master Alliance was not controlled by Lin Feng, perhaps things would really develop like this. After all, Ning Fengji, Tang Xiao, and the others were very old-fashioned. Even for Tang San, Lin Feng did not dare to guarantee that he would be completely changed. In the original story, no matter how bad the Heaven Do Empire was, these people had always been supporting it. As the sect master of the Tang sect, a super genius soul master, and even the future sect master of the Clear Sky sect, Tang San was very humble in front of Emperor Shui Yi. Especially the fourth prince, Avalanche, who provoked Tang San and the others time and time again. He even had the intention to kill them a few times. Under such circumstances, Shui Yi asked Avalanche to apologize, and Tang San forgave Avalanche just like that. And because of a reward from Shui Yi, Tang San even took Avalanche as his disciple. Lin Feng was really speechless about such a situation. If he was Tang San in the original story, he would have destroyed this royal family long ago. But now, Lin Feng was in charge of the Soul Master Alliance. He would not let Emperor Shui Yi manipulate him. Maybe he would be polite on the surface. But if it affected the interests of the Soul Master Alliance, he would not hesitate to take the initiative to attack. At this moment, he only hoped that Emperor Shui Yi was not too stupid and did not look for trouble so early. Otherwise, Lin Feng did not mind letting Shui Qinghe take the position early. Just as he was thinking about this, Lin Feng suddenly said to Shui Qinghe, "Mr. Destroy has told me everything about you. I'm very curious now. Has the Martial Soul Hall contacted you recently?" Shui Qinghe was stunned. This topic changed a little too quickly. However, he still answered, "They have contacted me. Half a month ago, Douluo and Douluo told me to give him the defensive map of Heaven Do City. The Martial Soul Hall needs it." Douluo and Douluo had been completely subdued by Shui Qinghe with Thanos' help. Although he did not join the Soul Master Alliance on the surface, he still listened to Thanos' orders in secret. The method to subdue him was very simple. It was a stick and a carrot. The stick was the fist. Thanos easily beat Douluo. With such a difference in strength, Douluo was still very tactful. As for the sweet date, it was a promise that could make him stronger. Because of Douluo Bo's example, not long after following Thanos, Douluo's strength suddenly increased from rank 91 to rank 96. Under such circumstances, after Lin Feng helped Douluo increase by 1 rank, he was completely subdued. Other than that, is there anything else? Lin Feng continued to ask. Half a month ago, he asked for the defensive map. His purpose was very clear. It was probably to prepare for the previous sneak attack. No wonder BB Dong's escape did not cause any waves during the previous battle. It turned out that he understood the defensive situation. No, Shui Qinghe shook his head. Then, As if he thought of something, he explained, I didn't know about BB Dong's sneak attack. When I gave you the defensive map, I didn't think it was important, so I gave it to you. He did not want Lin Feng to think that he was in cahoots with BB Dong. That was why he explained. Don't worry, I know this. I won't blame you. Lin Feng patted Shui Qinghe's shoulder. After pondering for a while, Lin Feng smiled and said, All right, since you don't want the reward, I'll definitely bring you along when I go to see God's Island. Speaking of which, Shui Qinghe's luck was definitely not low. After all, there were a total of 3 people who became gods on the Douluo continent. Other than BB Dong and Tang San, the last one was Shui Qinghe. If he brought him along, there might be less trouble, so Lin Feng felt that he could bring him along. Many thanks. Shui Qinghe breathed a sigh of relief. You're welcome. Lin Feng smiled. See you later. With that, Lin Feng did not stay any longer and quickly left. See you later. Shui Qinghe smiled and said. He did not send him off. This was already the outer area of the palace. Lin Feng left easily. Chapter 461. Lin Feng had gained a lot from his trip to the palace today. Not only did he complete his main mission and settle the taxes, but he also found out about the Sea God's Island. This was very important, as Lin Feng was very interested in that God-bestowed soul ring. Since the Sea God's Island was going to be opened, Lin Feng had to go to the island immediately to avoid any accidents. Therefore, what he had to do now was to quickly get the Soul Master Alliance on the right track. At the same time, he had to go to Martial Spirit City to provoke them and ensure that BB Dong and the others wouldn't come out anytime soon. As he thought about all this, Lin Feng returned to the Soul Master Alliance. He quickly told everyone about his conversation with the Snowy Night Emperor. We're actually exempted from taxes for 2 years. That's great. Ning Fengji said happily. Everyone else was also smiling. They were very satisfied with this news. This was because they had just finished planning for the Soul Master Alliance. After Thanos' explanation, everyone had a clear understanding of the Soul Master Alliance's development. They estimated that the Soul Master Alliance would become a huge Soul Master organization in half a year. Most importantly, the Soul Master Alliance would become the center of Soul Master trade in the Heaven Do Empire as long as they followed the plan. The organizations that had joined the Soul Master Alliance would enjoy the benefits of this. Yes, the first few years of the Soul Master Alliance will be the most difficult to develop. Now that we're exempted from taxes for 2 years, His Majesty is too considerate. Yu Yuanjin laughed. Ning Fengji also laughed. Yes, His Majesty is too good to us. Lin Feng. Wasn't this the result of his negotiation? Although the process was easier than he expected, he was the one who fought for it. However, in the eyes of Ning Fengji, Yu Yuanjin, and the others, this was a reward from the Snowy Night Emperor. Although they were a little stunned, Lin Feng could understand. In their eyes, their admiration for the Snowy Night Emperor couldn't be any higher. Regarding this, Lin Feng didn't say anything. He only thought that if he completely controlled the Heaven Do Empire in the future, this time would have to be pushed back. Otherwise, due to their loyalty to the Heaven Do Empire, it would be difficult for him to control them. This loyalty could only be eroded with time. In other words, these people would be more loyal to the Soul Master Alliance than to the Heaven Do Empire. When that happened, they wouldn't say anything even if Lin Feng annexed the Heaven Do Empire. Just as Lin Feng was thinking about this, Ning Fengji suddenly said, Alliance Chief Tang, His Majesty has treated us like this, so we can't just ignore it. Let's go visit His Majesty tomorrow. Tang San was speechless. He was a little depressed, but at the same time, he was also very confused. Wasn't that what Feng Ge had negotiated? Besides, didn't Feng Ge give the Snowy Night Emperor the wings of the sky? Wasn't that enough? Under such circumstances, why would he think that it was His Majesty's grace? Although it was normal for him to pay a visit to the Snowy Night Emperor as the Alliance leader, the reason should not be because of this. What's wrong? Ning Fengji asked. He realized that Tang San's expression was a little strange. At this moment, Lin Feng understood Tang San's situation. He said, There's no need to go. His Majesty will visit us in a few days. When that time comes, we'll welcome him. Lin Feng found out about this from Xue Qinghe. The two of them talked about this as they walked. I see. Ning Fengji smiled and said, then we'll have to prepare well. His Majesty is so considerate of us, so we should treat him seriously. That's right. Everyone nodded. Lin Feng didn't say much about this. He smiled and quickly changed the topic. He continued to discuss the plan. From Lin Feng's point of view, Ning Fengji's attitude towards the Snowy Night Emperor didn't matter. He didn't care either. He could still numb the Snowy Night Emperor in the short term. The plan for the development of the Soul Master Alliance was very tight. He had already finished half of it yesterday. Today's words were mainly to finish the rest. At the same time, he made some additions. For example, he was preparing to set up the Alliance's caravan, the Alliance's post office, and even the Alliance's express delivery. Of course, Lin Feng wouldn't explain everything in detail. He would explain the general direction and point out some key points at the same time. When the time came, Ning Fengji, Tang San, and the others would expand on their own. He would just confirm it at the end. Lin Feng also knew that the Soul Master Alliance couldn't develop well in a day or two. It needed long-term changes. Hence, he didn't say too much at once. He only gave a rough explanation. He had to take the first step first. The main point was that there were many things that could only be mentioned in the future. The infrastructure had to be built first. Only then could the subsequent plans follow. Lin Feng wasn't a god. He couldn't take care of everything. There were some things that he couldn't think of and didn't know what the situation was. After all, practice was the only standard to test the truth. Some things, no matter how well the theory was done, had to be done before a conclusion could be drawn. Just like that, after Lin Feng arranged everything as Thanos, he began to look for the 13 captives to talk about life. In the following half a day, everyone could hear the screams of the captives from the martial spirit hall from time to time. There were also powerful soul power fluctuations. At first, everyone was shocked and hurriedly went over to check. Later on, they found out that Thanos was sparring with the 13 captives. He was afraid that these people would get tired of staying here, so he gave them a chance to exercise their muscles and bones. At that time, Lin Feng even removed the seal for these people. They went up one by one and sparred with him. In fact, Lin Feng even did some 1 versus 3, 1 versus 5, and so on. On one hand, it was to earn experience points. On the other hand, it was also for Ning Fengji and the others to see. Weren't these people worried that something would happen if he released these people during the exam for the Alliance members? Today, he easily fought 1 against 5 and restrained this group of people. With this performance, they didn't have to worry about the exam anymore. Just as Lin Feng was sparring with these people, the Soul Master Alliance's various plans began to be implemented. First, they completed the laboratory. At the same time, they began to build the library, the commercial district, the trading plaza, and other buildings, especially the road from the other side of the forest to Heavendo City. After a day of construction, half of it was already completed. One had to know that it was several kilometers long. Furthermore, to match the status of the Soul Master Alliance, the area of the road was very wide. Fortunately, these Soul Masters' martial souls were very suitable for road construction. Under such circumstances, they could be so fast. Otherwise, if ordinary people were to build it, it would take at least 2 to 3 months to complete it. At the current speed, it would probably be completed in 3 days. When the time came, they would decorate and repair it. At most, it would take 5 days to complete it. In 5 days, the other buildings in the Soul Master Alliance would probably be completed one after another. When the time came, the Snowy Night Emperor would come to pay a visit and make a name for himself. Lin Feng would stay for a few days to settle any problems. The Soul Master Alliance could be considered to be on the right track. All that was left was to build branches in various places and replicate the experience of Heavendo City. Just as he was thinking about this, Thanos finished sparring. He continued to seal the 13 people and sent them back to their prison cells. Then, he continued to oversee the Soul Master Alliance. In these few hours, he earned 160 million experience points, which was considered not bad. At this moment, Lin Feng's main body found Grandmaster and Oscar. At this moment, The two of them, along with Ma Hongjun, were leading Ning, Rongrong, Dai Mubai, and the others out of the laboratory in the middle of the forest. There was still a lot of equipment, and they had to be moved to the new laboratory. As for Xiao Wu, she was not here. Tomorrow was the weekend, and Xiao Ying, Erming, and the others would be coming out of school. Furthermore, they had been away from Notting City for a while. Xiao was a little worried, so she went back first. Of course, she did not go back alone. Previously, Lin Feng took an hour to send her back. Fenggu, are you here to help move things too? After seeing Lin Feng, Ma Hongjun walked up enthusiastically. Go away. After waving his hand with a look of disdain, Lin Feng looked at Grandmaster and asked, Grandmaster, how's the situation with the phone we talked about before? Do you have an idea? The purpose of Lin Feng's visit this time was very simple. It was to see how the project was progressing. I have an idea. Grandmaster smiled and said, we have found a solution for the materials. As for the specific method to convert soul power into sound, it is also very simple. We just need to use soul skills. However, there are very few types of soul skills that can convert soul power into sound, and the sounds are relatively monotonous. There is no way for us to control the sounds ourselves. Now, our difficulty is to find the corresponding sounds for each soul power fluctuation. As long as we find the sounds, we can research the phone. Grandmaster's explanation was very detailed. There is only one difficulty now, and that was to find the corresponding soul power fluctuation for each sound. Note that the soul power fluctuation that needed to be found here was the sound of each word. As for the number of words, there are thousands of commonly used words. Including the less commonly used words and some rare words, there were tens of thousands of words. Of course, during the research, there was no need to find so many soul power fluctuations. Because the pronunciation of these tens of thousands of words was mostly the same, Grandmaster only needed to find the soul power fluctuation for the pronunciation. There were about 1,000 of them, and it was not a small project. How long will it take? Lin Feng asked happily. Grandmaster muttered to himself for a while, clearly thinking about the time. Oscar, who was at the side, smiled and said, we definitely won't test this research one by one. We have to issue an alliance mission and find people to help us test it. As long as we find enough people, we might be able to produce the test product within 5 days. Oscar's 5-day time limit was very conservative. He left himself some time to correct and adjust. Otherwise, if they rushed it, they might be able to produce the test product in 3 days. Of course, the prerequisite was that they had the contribution points to issue an alliance mission. Not bad, little AO. You learn quite quickly. You know how to use the alliance's convenience. Lin Feng praised. The alliance's mission system had been online yesterday, but because it had just appeared, most of the missions were issued by the alliance itself. As for the commission missions, there were not many. After all, it was new and people needed time to accept it. At this moment, Oscar was able to quickly accept new things. His brain was quite aware. It's all thanks to Feng Ji's good teaching. Oscar touched his head and smiled foolishly. Young man, not bad. You have awareness. Lin Feng patted Oscar's shoulder. The more he looked at this young man, the more he liked him. He had a bright future. Originally, I gave your laboratory a quota of 10,000 contribution points this year, but I feel that it's a bit too little. I'll add another 10,000 to give you 20,000 contribution points. Strive to produce the phone as soon as possible. The Soul Master Alliance had many departments, and the laboratory was one of them. The people inside not only received a monthly salary, but also a yearly quota of contribution points. At this moment, Lin Feng was running the Soul Master Alliance like a company. It was very convenient. Thank you, Fenggu. Fenggu is so cool. Oscar's face was full of smiles. A good word in exchange for 10,000 contribution points. Even though he knew that the main reason was to increase the efficiency of their laboratory's research, he still couldn't help but feel happy. Although the influence of contribution points wasn't that great now, it was possible to use contribution points to buy peerless cultivation techniques that didn't exist in the Soul Master Alliance. With this reason, contribution points were extremely valuable. Good kid, You have a bright future. I have high hopes for you. Lin Feng's smile became even wider. Master didn't know whether to laugh or cry at Lin Feng's mature scene. Dai Mubai and the others also laughed. As for Ma Hongjun, this guy curled his lips and said, "Chow Ao, you bootlicker." Before he could finish, Lin Feng immediately hit Ma Hongjun on the head, causing him to hold his head and cry out. He hurriedly said, "Feng Gu is so cool. Feng Gu is so cool." This time, everyone laughed even louder. Even Lin Feng couldn't help but smile. Fatty is such a clown. After laughing for a while, Master suddenly said, "Take Shi is quite talented. When we visited the laboratory previously, I roughly explained the principles, and she actually learned everything." Oscar also nodded and said, "Yes, Feng Gu. You don't know how smart Take Shi is. Master also explained these things to me before. I only understood after listening to it a few times, but Take Shi understood it after listening to it once. She's simply a genius." Hearing this, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Then he looked at Zhu Zhuqing and said, "Really?" After being asked by Lin Feng, Zhu Zhuqing's body immediately tensed up. He was stunned for a moment before nodding and saying, "You can say that. I think I can understand it." Then, Lin Feng looked at Dai Mubai. His eyes seemed to ask, "What about you?" Dai Mubai laughed dryly and said, "I don't understand. It feels like a book from heaven." Ma Hongjun continued, "Boss Dai is too stupid. He's not as smart as Take Shi." Even I, halfway through his words, Ma Hongjun seemed to have realized something and wanted to stop. However, it was too late. Dai Mubai instantly shifted his gaze to Ma Hongjun and raised one hand. Instantly, it fell. Dong! A crisp and resounding smack on the head. Chapter 462. Fatty's skin was thick, and he didn't learn from his mistakes. He had been beaten up so many times, but he still said what he had to say, and he wasn't afraid at all. Ignoring this clown, Lin Feng looked at Zhu Zhuqing and smiled. "Take Shi. If you're really talented, you can learn about soul tool technology. This technology will change the entire world of soul masters." Soul tool technology was very poor now, and they couldn't create anything that surpassed soul masters. However, this thing was like technology. Perhaps after decades or centuries of development, it would change qualitatively due to quantitative changes. After all, the upper limit of soul masters wasn't high. The original story said that the upper limit of a soul master's strength in Douluo continent was around 50,000 kilograms. When a god-ranked expert came to the continent, 50,000 kilograms was the limit. As for the experts in the god-ranked world, their strength was estimated to be around a few 100,000 to 1,000,000 kilograms. Of course, strength was strength, and this was just a simple aspect. The damage that an attack could cause was still greater than this. After all, destructive power and strength couldn't be lumped together. There were too many factors that affected it. Soul rings, godly power, and so on. With these things, one could unleash destructive power that was several times or even dozens of times stronger. Even so, it was already an exaggeration to raise the upper limit of a god's strength to 5,000,000 kilograms. However, the power of technology could far surpass all of these. Just those hydraulic machines, cranes, and so on could easily unleash hundreds of tons of strength. 1 ton was equivalent to 2,000 kilograms. 100 tons was equivalent to 200,000 kilograms of strength, which easily exceeded the upper limit of Douluo continent. Especially those modern weapons, the power that they could unleash would be even greater. Lin Feng estimated that some of the bigger bombs could kill a god when they exploded. Of course, these were only Lin Feng's guesses. Because of the rules of the world, the laws of physics in Douluo continent were very different from those in his previous world. Therefore, Lin Feng couldn't predict the extent of development. However, Lin Feng still agreed that soul tool technology had great prospects. If Zhu Zhuqing was more talented than Oscar, it would be a good thing. Changing the entire world of soul cultivators. Is it really that powerful? Ning Rongrong asked hurriedly. In her heart, soul tool technology was very strong. After all, the wings of the sky were still very shocking to her. However, she didn't know exactly how strong it was, nor did she think about the future of this technology. Of course it's real. Oscar rushed to answer. Fenggu told us before that not only will this affect the Soul Master world, but the entire continent of Douluo will be affected as well. Don't you think it's amazing? Lin Feng also laughed and said little Ao is right. Soul tools are filled with endless possibilities. As long as you're willing to think about it and put in the effort to research it, you might be able to create anything. For example, a large wings of the sky that can carry hundreds of people, or a large ship that can travel underwater. The enlightenment of science and technology was not something that could be achieved overnight. So Lin Feng's words were more conservative. Otherwise, if he directly told Master and the others about rockets and spaceships, they would probably be dumbfounded. However, the example he was talking about now was very vivid. A wings of the sky that can carry hundreds of people? Is that possible? Dai Mubai's face was full of disbelief. There's even a large ship that can travel underwater? Don't all ships travel on the surface of the water? If it goes underwater, won't people drown? At this moment, Ma Hongjun immediately felt a sense of superiority and said, Boss Dai is really stupid. Some soul cultivators with special martial souls can travel underwater, and some soul cultivators can also enter the water after using soul skills. If we can thoroughly research this soul skill, it's possible to drive a ship underwater. After hearing this, Dai Mubai didn't give Fatty another knock on the head, because he felt that it made sense. But aren't soul tools all small objects? Can it make a large ship? Ning Rongrong asked. Dai Mubai also said, yes, the wings of the sky is so small. If hundreds of people can use it, can it really be made? The reason why Dai Mubai, Ning Rongrong, and the others thought this way was very simple. It was because all the soul tools on Douluo's continent were very small, and the largest was only about 1 meter. Large ships, wings of the sky that could carry hundreds of people, and so on, these things were simply impossible in their minds. Furthermore, they were complete newbies when it came to soul tool technology. They didn't know anything and didn't have any concept. As for why Ma Hongjun could think of this idea in his mind, the reason was very simple. In any case, he had learned from Master for a few years, and his thinking was somewhat innovative. At the same time, he had some understanding of soul tool technology. Under such circumstances, he could say such words. Oscar also said, in theory, as long as there are enough energy sources and materials, these things can be made. Master laughed and said, Xiao Ao is right. These things can be made. There are many sea soul masters in the coastal cities, and their martial souls are completely different from those on land. Most of them are sea creatures. As long as we study those sea soul masters thoroughly, we should be able to make a ship that can travel at the bottom of the sea. In everyone's hearts, Master was more reliable than Oscar and Ma Hongjun. Now that Master said it was possible, everyone believed him. At the same time, they were all amazed. Soul tools can actually be used to make things like this. It's really unbelievable. Lin Feng laughed and said, it's not just this. Soul tool technology covers too many aspects. As long as it continues to develop, the entire Douluo's continent will change greatly. Then I want to learn soul tool technology too. Ning Rongrong suddenly said, although I didn't understand what Master said just now, I understood about a third of it. I think I have talent in this area too. Ning Rongrong wasn't lying about this. Although she wasn't as talented as Zhu Zhuqing, she still understood a little. Initially, she didn't have the intention to learn more about this technique. But just now, when Zhu Zhuqing displayed her talent, Lin Feng's eyes lit up, which stimulated her. She was a little jealous. At the same time, she wanted to show off in front of Lin Feng. So she said she wanted to learn too. Soul tool technology requires a lot of patience, and it's also very boring. Rongrong, can you take it? Lin Feng questioned. Lin Feng was clear about Zhu Zhuqing's character. He was a man of few words, but he was very hard-working and patient. Furthermore, he could stand loneliness. When they were in Soto City, Zhu Zhuqing's soul power rank was the lowest. However, he could surpass most people now. It was evident how hard it was for him. As for Ning Rongrong, it wasn't that Lin Feng was biased, but that she couldn't bear it. She was just like Ma Hongjun. He had been learning from Master for 2 to 3 years, but he was still a dabbler. As for Oscar, it was very painful for him when he first started learning. Now that he had gotten through the most difficult period at the beginning, he was enjoying himself. Of course I can. After hearing Lin Feng's question, Ning Rongrong was like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. She was instantly furious. I will definitely work hard. In the future, I will definitely become as powerful as Master. As if to encourage herself, Ning Rongrong's voice wasn't soft. After she finished speaking, she seemed to realize that her way of speaking wasn't right. She added softly, I just want to learn. All right, then learn. Master chortled. I will teach you well. That's great. Ning Rongrong giggled. What about Take Shi? Do you want to learn? Lin Feng asked. He had been talking for a while, but Zhu Zhuqing hadn't said anything. Lin Feng didn't know what she was thinking. Zhu Zhuqing muttered to herself for a while. He seemed to be hesitating about something. Zhu Zhuqing couldn't stay in the Heaven Do Empire for too long because he had things to settle in the Star Luo Empire. 1 or 2 months was fine. However, if he wanted to learn soul tool technology, he might need a few years. After all, Oscar had been learning for almost 3 years. Therefore, Zhu Zhuqing was a little hesitant right now. At the same time, she had some things she wanted to say to Lin Feng. However, she hadn't said anything because he was too busy. In addition, the timing wasn't right. Zhu Zhuqing was still a little nervous right now. Dai Mubai immediately understood Zhu Zhuqing's thoughts. He immediately said, Don't worry, Take Shi. I'll go back to your family when the time comes. He was very interested in soul tool technology, but his head started to throb when he thought about what the Grandmaster had said. Therefore, he didn't want to learn anything. Cultivating his soul power was the most important thing. Thank you, Boss Dai. Zhu Zhuqing thanked him. After that, she said, Then I'll learn from Master too. I hope I can help Feng Ge. These were the words in Zhu Zhuqing's heart. She subconsciously blurted them out. At this moment, Ma Hongjun immediately said, Feng Ge, Takechi's sister has already said that. Aren't you going to say anything? Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zhuqing liked Lin Feng. Everyone knew this. Now that Zhu Zhuqing said something like this, the atmosphere instantly became tense. Oscar also said, Yes, Feng Ge. We haven't seen each other for 3 years. Take Shi still can't forget you. Aren't you going to say anything? Dai Mubai was even more direct. He pushed Zhu Zhuqing in front of Lin Feng. At the same time, he said, I think the two of you are a match made in heaven. At this moment, Zhu Zhuqing's face turned red. She was already so nervous that she couldn't even speak. She didn't even dare to look at Lin Feng. She only lowered her head and stared at her toes. Lin Feng was also caught off guard by everyone's words. At this moment, he touched his nose and felt a little embarrassed. At this moment, Ning Rongrong couldn't stand it anymore. She quickly said, I also want to help Feng Ge. Looking at the situation, Zhu Zhuqing was about to become Lin Feng's girlfriend. Ning Rongrong was naturally anxious. At this moment, she directly walked in front of Lin Feng and repeated, Feng Ge, I also want to help you. Ma Hongjun jeered again with a sinister smile on his face. He said, Feng Ge, you're in luck now. Rongrong and Take Shi both like you. Why don't you marry both of them? Douluo was still in a feudal era. As a soul master, it was normal for him to have 3 wives and 4 concubines. In Ma Hongjun's opinion, Lin Feng was so outstanding and powerful. Even if Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zhuqing were the princess of the 7 Treasures Glaze sect and a super noble of the Star Luo Empire, they would still be able to marry each other. If the two of them married Lin Feng together, they would be a good match. Mainly, it depended on the two of them. At the same time, it was also very important to decide who the wife would be. Yes, Feng Ge is so outstanding. Rongrong and Take Shi won't feel wronged if they marry both of them. Oscar also said, This. Ning Rongrong was a little speechless. She looked at Zhu Zhuqing, and the latter also raised his head at this time. The two of them looked at each other, and both of them were a little evasive. In fact, both of them knew that Lin Feng was so outstanding that there must be a lot of people who liked him. Xiao had also told them many times how popular Lin Feng was in elementary school and how many people liked him. Xiao even said that if it weren't for Tang San, she would even like Lin Feng. Under such circumstances, Zhu Zhuqing and Ning Rongrong were actually prepared for Lin Feng to marry several wives. However, at the same time, they also wanted to fall in love with Lin Feng and make him their first wife. After all, a man's first wife was a legitimate wife. As for a concubine, her status was still inferior to that of the first wife. At this time, when they heard Ma Hongjun and Oscar's words, the two of them were slightly embarrassed and didn't know what to say. Fortunately, Lin Feng made a move at this time. He directly gave Ma Hongjun and Oscar a knock on the head. He scolded, "You two talk too much. If you don't know what to say, then shut up. Is this the time to talk about this?" After giving the two of them a knock, Lin Feng turned to Zhu Zhuqing and Ning Rongrong and said with a smile, "The two of you, what you need to do now is to learn from the master and enrich yourselves. We'll talk about the rest later." "Oh." The two of them nodded and said. They couldn't figure out Lin Feng's thoughts now. However, Lin Feng didn't reprimand them, nor did he express any dissatisfaction with the situation just now. This showed that the two of them had a place in Lin Feng's heart. This made the two of them very happy, but at the same time, they were also very depressed because Lin Feng didn't respond to Oscar and Ma Hongjuan's heckling just now. If the two of them both liked Lin Feng, how would he choose? Would he choose one, or would he want both? Under such circumstances, the two of them felt that it was difficult to choose either choice. Just as they were thinking about this, Lin Feng said, "All right, don't run around for the next 2 months. When the time comes, I'll take you to a place to improve your strength." "Where?" Ma Hongjun quickly asked. "You'll know when the time comes." With a mysterious smile, Lin Feng didn't say much and left directly. Chapter 463. Because of Lin Feng's words, everyone fell into deep thought. They were all thinking about where Lin Feng was going to bring them. Suddenly, the awkward atmosphere eased a little. Not long after, the Grandmaster smiled. "All right, don't think too much. You'll know when the time comes. Let's move now. After we move, I'll give Rongrong and Take Shi a basic lesson." "Yes, Grandmaster," everyone replied. Then, they quickly got to work. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed. After 3 days of work, the Soul Master Alliance's headquarters building was almost done. This morning, Tang San, Ning Fengji, and the others were informed that the Snowy Night Emperor would personally visit the Soul Master Alliance at noon. Because of this, everyone was very excited. They started to make all sorts of preparations to welcome the Snowy Night Emperor. This was a very formal visit. Almost everyone in Heaven Do City knew about it. Various Soul Master factions came to watch. Even many commoners and nobles came to find out what was going to happen. In any case, the Soul Master Alliance was very lively at noon. There were people everywhere. When the Snowy Night Emperor arrived, Tang San and the others personally went to welcome him. Both sides unleashed their auras of intimacy. When everyone saw this scene, they all came to a simple conclusion. The Snowy Night Emperor was very optimistic about the Soul Master Alliance. It was because of his support that the Soul Master Alliance could exist. In the end, the Snowy Night Emperor stayed in the Soul Master Alliance for about 3 hours. During this time, he toured the Soul Master Alliance's base and various buildings. His face was full of smiles. Tang San didn't like to accompany the Snowy Night Emperor to visit the company. Therefore, he didn't bother much after receiving him. During this long period, Ning Fengji was the one who accompanied him. After that, the Snowy Night Emperor went back, satisfied. As for Lin Feng, he was in the Alliance's laboratory right now. As the Soul Master Alliance's development plan, the telephone was indispensable. Therefore, Lin Feng was very attentive to its research. In these 3 days, he also helped with the research. After that, he sped up the research. Of course, his help was mainly in the inspection aspect. If it was research, he wasn't cut out for it, so he didn't have the patience to do research. Even so, his powerful spiritual energy was of great help. This evening, Lin Feng corrected the corresponding soul power undulations of all the audio and confirmed that there were no errors. This was good news. Oscar and the Master did not waste any time. They grabbed the corrected data and started to make the phone. This thing was difficult to make, but it was also simple. The difficulty lay in understanding the principles behind its creation, as well as the precise control of soul power. Both the master and Oscar had all of these. Hence, after the materials were prepared, the prototype was quickly made. This prototype was not the kind of landline that was plugged into a telephone line. It was directly a mobile phone. "Phone go, it's done. I made it." Oscar grabbed the finished prototype and said excitedly. Lin Feng smiled and said, "What are you so excited about? Hurry up and test it. See if it works. If it works, then it's called out. If it doesn't work, then we'll have to redo it." "Yes, yes. Test it." Oscar hurriedly said to the master, "Master, let's test it quickly." At this time, Ma Hongjun, Zhu Zhuqing, and Ning Rongrong were all watching attentively from the side. They had watched the development of this phone bit by bit. If it could be used now, it would have a special meaning for them. At this time, the master also said, "The three of you watch carefully and see how this phone works." Because it was a prototype, the phone was not very small. Instead, it was like a head and some buttons were exposed. The master said this to let the three of them understand the operating principle. The prototype phone had a total of 3 things: 2 phones and a standard signal transfer tower with a range of about 100 miles. In other words, as long as the production was successful, these 2 phones could be used to communicate within 100 miles. With that, the master picked up a phone and called the one in Oscar's hand. Ding, ding, ding. Suddenly, the phone in Oscar's hand rang. He was already prepared. He immediately pressed the answer button, and the ringing sound disappeared. For a moment, the entire laboratory fell silent. "Is it effective?" Oscar asked tentatively. In the next second, a voice came from the other side of the phone in the master's hand. "Is it effective?" Whether it was the tone or the tone, it was exactly the same as what Oscar had said just now. It was just that the voice was a little softer. "It's a success," the master said excitedly. He could not suppress the joy on his face. Ever since he started researching soul tool technology, the master had been very excited in his heart. This was because he experienced the excitement from a long time ago. The feeling of breaking the rules of the soul master world and turning the impossible into the possible made him fascinated. Just like the phone now. Who would have thought that this thing could really be made? But now, it was born in his hands. This feeling was really indescribable. At the same time, his words of success came from the phone in Oscar's hand. In an instant, everyone in the laboratory shouted excitedly, "It's a success!" Lin Feng was a little speechless. It was just a small phone call, and they were already so excited. Won't they all go crazy when planes and cannons are made in the future? Soon, the master was the first to calm down. He thought of something. He hurriedly said, "Xiao Ao, hurry up and go north. Go as far as you can. It's best if you go outside the city. I'll go south. Let's see if we can still talk later." The phone itself had soul power fluctuations. It could cover a range of 2 to 3 kilometers. Within this range, 2 phones could talk. The master's words were to test the effectiveness of the signal relay tower. Theoretically speaking, the signal relay tower could cover a range of 50 kilometers, not to mention the north and south gates of Heavendo City. Even if they ran out to the Heavendo Imperial Academy, they would still be able to talk. "Okay, I'll go north right now," Oscar hurriedly said. As he spoke, he quickly rushed towards the north. The master turned to Ma Hongjun and said, "You can fly. Grab this signal detector and fly out with Heavendo City as the center. Circle the city once, then come back and report back to me." The master wanted to test the stability of the signal relay tower with Oscar. He wanted to see if the signal relay tower was stable. As for Ma Hongjun, he was doing this to test the radiation range of the signal relay tower to see if it was really 100 miles. Of course, Ma Hongjun didn't need to be very precise. He only needed to do a rough test. It was fine as long as the signal relay could reach over 90 kilometers. After that, the master would gather everyone to conduct a more rigorous test. "Yes, master." After nodding, Ma Hongjun grabbed the tester and quickly went out. Lin Feng couldn't help but nod at the sight of this. The master's planning skills were very good. He was patient and had a good grasp of the details. It was a very good decision to appoint him as the director of the research institute. "Take Shi and Rongrong. Stay here and look after the signal relay tower. I'm going to the south gate." With that, the master left. Whether it was intentional or not, the master had purposely placed the two women and Lin Feng in the same room. After the master left, the atmosphere in the room fell silent. Zhu Zhuqing was a quiet person. He stood there and stared blankly at the signal relay tower, but couldn't see anything different. As for Ning Rongrong, this girl was usually very lively, but at this moment, she was also standing there in a daze, not saying a word. Lin Feng coughed when he heard this, and then he said, "Air, you two just stand here and watch. I'll go out with the master." In reality, Lin Feng could accept that Zhu Zhuqing still liked him after 3 years. But halfway through, another person appeared. Ning Rongrong, that girl, actually liked him too. Lin Feng felt a little uncomfortable. Plus, he had been very busy recently. For this matter, Lin Feng didn't want to face it. He just wanted to leave as soon as possible. However, he had just taken a few steps when Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zhuqing shouted at the same time, "Stop." After shouting, the two looked at each other and saw a trace of surprise in each other's eyes. At this time, Lin Feng turned around and asked innocently, "What's wrong?" The two women stopped looking at each other. Ning Rongrong said, "You can't leave. You have to give me an explanation today." "What explanation?" "I'm in a hurry to find a master to record the data." Lin Feng pretended to be stupid, and as he said that, he was ready to walk outside. Of course, he knew what Ning Rongrong was asking. She was asking him who he should choose between the two of them. But of course, Lin Feng couldn't say this out loud. He was in a dilemma, so he tried to avoid this matter. "Me or Rongrong? Who do you choose?" Suddenly, Zhu Zhuqing's cold voice sounded. "I don't like to do multiple-choice questions. Usually, only children make choices." With that, Lin Feng didn't hesitate and immediately slipped away. Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zhuqing were slightly confused. They didn't understand Lin Feng's meaning. But soon, Zhu Zhuqing's face turned red and she secretly spat. Ning Rongrong, on the other hand, also realized what was going on. She muttered, "Zhuqing, do you think Brother Feng wants to marry us?" "I don't know." Zhu Zhuqing's face turned even redder. After leaving the laboratory, Lin Feng let out a sigh of relief. "We're finally out." The environment just now, to be honest, even Lin Feng was a little nervous. One had to know that he wasn't even this nervous when he came out of Massacre City and walked Hell Road. However, Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zhuqing actually made him nervous. Women were really too scary, and now that he was out, he naturally wouldn't follow the master to get the data. That was just an excuse. The master was very capable. Since the experiment was successful, he believed that it wouldn't be long before the final product could be seen after strict testing. And the next thing to do was very simple. It was to build the telephone and signal relay tower. At the same time, the Soul Master Alliance had to install signal relay towers all over the Heaven Do Empire. This way, the telephone could really be spread. Of course, because of the telephone, Lin Feng didn't plan to popularize it on a large scale for civilian use. The current design of the telephone was still very simple. It only had a very simple dialing method. Lin Feng estimated that it would take 3 to 4 years for it to be popularized. As for the more complicated dialing system, he would develop it when the time came. Just as he was thinking about this, someone in front of him suddenly called out to him. He looked up and saw that it was Tang San. Beside him was Xiao Wu. This girl. Before leaving, Lin Feng said that he would pick her up in 5 days. He didn't expect her to come by herself. However, because of the wings of the sky, Xiao Wu's speed was very fast, even though she was only a soul sage. She probably set off this morning. She rushed from Nodding City to Heaven Do City in a day. This speed was too fast, because in the past, it would take at least 3 days to travel such a long distance. "Xiao Wu, why are you here? Didn't I say that I would pick you up the day after tomorrow? What if you encountered danger on the way?" After seeing Xiao Wu, Lin Feng went up and knocked her on the head. What era was it now? It could be said that they were at war with the Martial Soul Hall. What if BB Dong chose to launch a sneak attack? Then he would coincidentally encounter Xiao Wu. Wouldn't his life be in danger then? Lin Feng really treated Xiao Wu as his younger sister. Therefore, he was still a little angry when this happened. Feng Ge, I know my mistake. Xiao Wu covered her head and immediately admitted her mistake. She knew that quibbling was useless. In the past, whenever Lin Feng scolded her, she would quibble. However, her experience told her that quibbling was useless. Instead, she would be knocked on the head a few more times. Therefore, ever since then, whenever Lin Feng reprimanded her, Xiao Wu would immediately admit her mistake and put on a pitiful look. Right now, she was using the same trick again. The effect was very good. Lin Feng's anger was immediately reduced by more than half. He then said, "All right, you're lucky this time. Don't do it again, or I'll break your legs." "Got it." Xiao Wu continued to act pitiful. "By the way, why did you come here early?" Lin Feng asked. Tang San immediately said, "Feng Ge, Xiao Wu wants to talk about the relocation. Aren't we all in Heavendo City recently? My father, Xiaoying, and Erming are all in Notting City. Xiao Wu can't always travel between the two places, right? Why don't we bring them all over?" "Bring them over?" Lin Feng shook his head and said, "Not in a short time." Lin Feng actually had this idea before, but he knew that now was not the time. If he stayed in the city all the time, it would be fine to bring them over. However, he was about to go to see God's Island soon, so it was best to leave them in Notting City,